Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 25th race of the 2021 FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals as we are here in the Irish Hills at the Michigan International Speedway. We're getting ready to go racing for the FTF WOJ 200, 100 laps at this 2-mile speedway slash super speedway, and getting ready to see who might be able to make a last-minute bid to get into the playoffs with only 3 races remaining on the regular season schedule. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Scott Rankin, and Scott, I mean, we've seen these guys at short tracks, at road courses. They have not been afraid to take it double threes, sometimes even on occasions 4 wide. They've got 5 lanes available to them in this one, so I have a feeling we're going to see them use every single one of these lanes, but with all this space, I mean, what are we looking for? Are we looking for a long green flag run strategy, or do these drivers kind of prepare themselves for some short spurts?
I think, first and foremost, Seth, you actually missed one category of racing, short course road racing on go-kart tracks of all things in Xfinity cars. Yeah, so look, I mean, that was phenomenal a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, look, I mean, these guys, you got to remember with FTF, we do actually have quite a good quality field. And then there's just like, all the way down the field, people are fighting. Cars are going to get stacked up. Its level of difficulty goes up a notch. But yeah, I'm hopeful that if it happens once during the race we get to 5 wide, it's a great night. It's a great night.
TJ Burke and Jordan Worth going to be the front row here to lead us to green. 100 laps of racing, a full 43-car field here tonight for the festivities. iRacing pace car makes the left-hand turn to pit road. Let's get ready to turn them loose here at Michigan International Speedway. Green flag is in the air. Burke's going to get clear for the top spot. He's now going to leave Rudy Valentine to the inside of the 92 of Jordan Worth. Sean Butler looking on. We're going to be also giving you guys the inside scoop of what the playoffs look like coming into tonight with only a handful of races left here tonight at Michigan. Next week, they head to Bathurst. That's going to be a lot of fun at that road course. And then our regular season finale takes place at the track Too Tough to Tame of Darlington before beginning the playoffs at Daytona. Battle for the lead. The 78 of Rudy Valentine. Nice exit there out of turn 4. Gets the right rear quarter panel of Burke. Who's going to lead the first lap? Barely by a splitter. It will be the pole sitter.
What a run, too. Look at these guys. They're all stacking up. And the reason these guys are running too wide at this stage is because, A, the draft is really strong, but B, they also want to get that clean air out of that nose. We constantly talk about it, how important it is. Every single other car behind them is going to have to deal with dirty air.
Rudy Valentine, unfortunately for him, our Monza winner, too far down in the point standings that he cannot mathematically make it high enough for even a second win here tonight to count towards a spot in the playoffs. But he would obviously love to be able to be a multi-time winner here in the Grand National Series as we drop back around just outside of the top 10. That's where they're really mixing it up. You got Jack Painter back there in the 22. He was double wide for a moment with A.J. Henderson. They've kind of settled it out there. Behind them, though, they were nearly 3 wide. Nate Stewart in the middle of that. Nathan Rabideau, who was very fast in practice. Benjamin Fanning, the 96. Nice to see him back in the field here today. He's in the 16th position. Basically, the top 10, 11, 12 drivers, they've gotten themselves pretty well situated out. Little intermittent side-by-side battles going on in that area.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, we constantly talk about it. Like, you know, I kind of get sick of preaching patience, patience, patience. Look after those tires. Michigan, you know, Michigan Auto Club, very similar kinds of circuits. It really pays at these sorts of tracks just to hang on to a little bit. Yeah, you're going to need to make some ground up. One of the best places that you can make ground up is when the cars are all packed tightly together. Say, a start. That's when the most cars are together on track. So look, guys will be wanting to make a few positions up now, and then I generally like to grab, say, 3, 4, 5 positions, settle into a little bit of a rhythm, save some tire, and then go ahead again towards the back end of a run. That's generally the way that I approach my races. Some of these guys are going to come out here, get real aggressive, try and get some clean air, some fresh air, a whole bunch of spots, and then they'll lag towards the back end of the stint.
Saw back there the 54 on track, but the 97 on our telemetry, Kenny Brady in the 7th position. We saw him, of course, take a checkered flag back at Charlotte Motor Speedway around mid-June. Sean Butler right now trying to hold off Jordan Worth. That is for the 3rd position, and talked about the fact that there's a number of drivers coming into this race that even here tonight could possibly lock up a playoff spot. Those are 2 of those drivers. Right now, we've got Sean Butler 6th in the playoff grid, and that 92 of Jordan Worth, he currently finds himself, actually correction, Jordan Worth is actually out of the playoff contention. I thought he was actually in playoff contention, but he's 19th overall. But Butler, on the other hand, he is fighting for a playoff position. Some of the other drivers that still have a shot of pointing their way in include Andrew Schwartz, who, again, kind of pulled the typical Andrew Schwartz strategy, starting towards the back, currently running in, I believe it's the 23rd position. We've also got Nathan Rabideau, the 93. He's back in the 14th spot. He's got a shot. Nate Stewart, who we just saw moments ago. Tristan Hagenstein, who actually had to kind of qualify his way in through the LCQ race just before we end up going green in this one. Didn't exactly have the best of qualifying efforts, and thusly started towards the back of the pack. Right now running in the 35th position.
Yeah, there's a lot of drivers actually out here tonight that have got some difficult prospects on their plates. And remember, when we head to Bathurst next week, you don't want to be going into Bathurst with a question mark over your head in terms of playoff standings, because that is going to be one of the most difficult races on the season, on the schedule, and that is a 2-hour race. So if you can get that tick above your name beforehand, go in there with a lot of confidence and settle into the race out there. Like I said, again, one of the most difficult races this calendar is going to hold. It is going to be, you get to enjoy Bathurst. It's one of those difficult tracks, but it does have some real nice quirks to it, and the sights are just phenomenal.
3 wide for almost a full lap there, and still 3 wide going into turn 1. This is outside the top 20 for 22nd place. That was Andrew Schwartz, Seth Knoll, and Dalton Cowden, and they were a tight formation of 3 wide there, especially between the 077 and the 117. Great job all keeping it pointed the right direction. That was actually taking place right in front of former winner and current points leader Jonathan Oates. Rabideau in the 93, trying to get by Chris Wetz for the 14th position. Behind them, Zach Hudson, Benjamin Fanning, and 45 of Lucas Palesso. They're mixing it up. You see Jonathan Oates back there using the apron on the front straightaway, which is legal. And while it does, it can gain you maybe a 10th or 2 on the front straightaway, it does kind of hinder drivers in their entry into turn 1. You might be entering a little bit shallower than you would like to. And with this being the somewhat older surface of Michigan, I would think it would wear those rear tires down, that right rear especially.
But it wears both the front and the rear, because you're also going to make sure that when you get into turn 1, that shallower entry, it means turn 1, turn 2, you've actually got a lot more rotation of the car that you need to get through. So that's why the higher line's preferential. You can actually start your corner a little bit earlier, which means you're rotating the car for a longer period of time, but the forces going through that outside tire aren't anywhere near as tight. So that's the whole reason that you want to back all of that up, which, you know, it means you can save a whole bunch of tire. I'm just having a look. Nobody's really looking to run the bottom at the moment, and I think that's the smartest thing that they can really do. The only reason you'll be that far down is if you absolutely have to. It is intense down there. It is, like you said, an older surface. Guys want to be running 1 to 2 grooves up off the bottom. Potentially, as we start to get towards the tail end of this stint, running 3 to 4 grooves up, and that second groove from the top, I think that's going to be where the real fast lane is towards the back end here.
TJ Burke going to use the inside. He will edge ahead at the start-finish line and try to clear here through 1 and 2 to go back to the point. Saw them 3 wide for a brief moment back there around the 8th position. That was Matthew Swack, AJ Henderson, Jack Painter all mixing it up. They've now settled it out, and Rudy Valentine, look at that, got that good exit off of 2 after the 194 pushed up off the corner, crosses him over, and he'll go back to the race lead going into 3.
Yeah, and there's battles happening right up and down. Remember, with 43 car field, and a lot of these drivers are very, very close together. Just went 3 wide through 1 and 2. Now they'll settle it out back in the pack down into 2 wide, which is the 02 machine. That's Ryan Narocki, and the 45 machine's in amongst that as well. Lucas Plessel, 96, and the 066. Benjamin Fanning and Blake McCandless. So those guys are really tight-knit in this battle pack. It was actually the 02 machine of Narocki that sent it down the inside 3 wide in 1 and 2 and got the pass done.
Those drivers you mentioned, Plessel and Narocki, they're battling for playoff positions. 11 drivers will make the playoffs this season. Palesol right now 10th in the overall points, 17 to the good above the cut line. Naraki, though, is on the outside looking in. He's 33 points behind that cut line area, and right now those two in the same vicinity battling for the 17th position. 3 drivers we absolutely know are going to be in the playoffs. Grand National Series drivers that had victories this season. Jonathan Oates, obviously, former winner and current points leader, as well as Brent Punkari and Jake Poulin, who both took victories in the respective super speedway races. Poulin at Daytona in the season opener, and Punkari at Talladega.
So again, remember what I said. They get to go to Bathurst next week, and Bathurst isn't necessarily a throwaway for them. They can just have fun. Or, you know, if something comes up, they want to spend some time with their families just before going to playoff season, you know, they can back things off, they can settle down, they can make sure that they're really getting the most out of their time, and that's important heading into a playoff season. You want your mind to be free of concerns, of doubts, you know, you want to be settled in, you want to be racing that car, and that's what you're focused on. Getting out here, having a boatload of fun. 2 separate packs starting to really form, and actually it's starting to settle out into nearly, I'm counting 3 to 4, packs that are breaking away. So there's everyone from 1st all the way down to 11th, which is Casey Nemitz. Then you've got 12th all the way through back to looks like it's, I want to say 23rd, which is the pack that we were looking at just before, which is Zachary Thornton, Dalton Cowden, Zachary Thornton, that sort of area. And then you've got this another micro pack, which is, there's a gap, 29th, which is Gary Waterworth. He's sort of in the middle of the 2 packs, and then everyone from behind him are on back, so...
Got a car headed for pit road. I don't know if this is regularly scheduled or not. That's a 4 of Nate Stewart. It looks like this is a regularly scheduled pit stop for him, but I'm not certain why you would come to pit road this early if it is indeed a scheduled pit stop.
I think I've got a reason for that. He's recognized that he can make it to home from here. Like, this is the earliest the pit window basically opens to get it done in necessarily 2-3 stops, whatever it is tonight. So he's coming down. Right now he was just mired in traffic. He wasn't gaining anything by sitting out there. He was losing a lot more than he was gaining. With 43 cars out there, somebody's got to throw the curveball, and it's going to be Stewart that does it.
Nate Stewart came into this race 67 points to the good above the cut line, so yeah, why not try the strategy here, see if maybe it'll gain you some track position and give you an even better cushion going into, maybe for a number of these drivers, a bit of an unknown in terms of Bathurst. I mean, you look at these 3 remaining races, all these drivers certain have a lot of reps here at Michigan, probably a lot of reps at Darlington, but I don't know just exactly what the experience level is throughout the field of drivers at that challenging road course.
And that's it. It's challenging road course. I don't even think that begins. About the only extra challenge that you could potentially throw at these cars is maybe the Nordschleifer. That is pretty much the be-all, end-all in terms of road course challenges. I mean, V8 supercars, Australian version of NASCAR, is generally the way that I like to describe them to a whole bunch of people. They're designed for road courses, and even they struggle to get around there, and a lot of guys have problems getting those cars around there. NASCARs? Cars that aren't designed to rise, fall, shift their weight around as much as you do a V8 supercar, it's going to be difficult. You're going to see a lot of guys in the fence next week, that much is for sure.
Pretty safe to say, pack racing here tonight at Michigan. As you mentioned, we've got little groups, but these little groups, they have been up each other's gearboxes. 3 wide up here at the front as you've got Worth on the apron, Butler in the middle, and TJ Burke on the top side. Nobody's really been able to get away from each other.
Boy, don't we just love pack racing though, Seth. I mean, look at the excitement. 3 wide, you can throw a blanket over all 3 of these guys at the top. There's next to no space in between the cars. The 32 is going to settle back into that high side and see if Butler can actually start to run it down towards the 4 here.
Riding on board here with Sean Butler. You can just barely see on the left side of the screen. There's Worth trying to follow in the tire tracks of the race leader. Oh, and he's going to get hooked! It's Worth right off the nose of the 32 car. Big wreck on the front straightaway.
It's huge.
6, 7, 8 cars there up on the racetrack in the infield grass. A couple ducked onto pit lane. Big impact there off the final turn.
And it just looks like either the car on the bottom, the 92 machine, either gets tight, starts to drift up, or it's the airflow coming over the car from the car up ahead. It's just a mistake that's made. I don't know if it's by the 30. I honestly cannot tell you if it's the car on the high side, the car on the low side that makes the mistake. It's one of those close ones.
Drop back and look at a replay, take an in-depth look of what happened there. We saw it from the vantage point of Sean Butler right when it happened. Butler with a lot of front end damage on his machine. Jordan Worth couldn't even pilot his race car back to his pit stall, had to call for a tow. Rudy Valentine had to duck onto pit lane, as I think he went around off the nose of, I think that might have been the 22 of Painter. Several other drivers back there getting hard on the brakes. That's Zach Hudson, the 54. 45 of Lucas Palesol. I mean, a lot of these guys did a really good job. They had to slam on the brakes to avoid, but man, especially with all that smoke, a bit of a blind corner there for a lot of drivers in that second pack that were entering into the vicinity. They did a good job of backing it down, making sure it wasn't any worse than what we initially had.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really difficult. I really like the new style of smoke, though. What it encourages is it encourages drivers to slow down, to be more cautious when coming across an accident, because you're going through it blind. The old style of smoke, you could really see through it, and you could still pick out, where the cars were, but the current style of smoke, it is blind. You are literally driving through a smoke screen. The only way to get through that safely is to back it all the way down. Not partially, not mostly, all the way down safely, because otherwise you're just gonna end up T-boning somebody else that's a mile and a half up ahead of you. It's a really good safety feature that's unintended, but good, shall we say.
Let's ride on board with our points leader, Jonathan Oates, see exactly what he saw. There's the smoke of the incident up ahead. Oates was at the tail end of that second pack, and look at him split the gap there. That was the 92 to his left of Worth, and I think that was the 00 of Poulin that he passed by on the left side. Everybody doing a great job of either blowing up or slowly tiptoeing their way through the incident. In all honesty, just based off the count I was seeing there, in terms of contact, a lot of smoke, but I think there were only maybe at the most 4 drivers that may have sustained damage in some way, shape, or form.
Look, that's really lucky, especially with the kind of incident like that. And, multiple drivers up there in the fence, bouncing off the top wall, ricocheting down, coming through the infield, potentially spinning their way back up the track. Yeah, that's a phenomenal effort by the entire field, and, a great standard set once again by FTF. I mean, we see it just about week in, week out with this series, that the drivers here, they know how to respect their competition, they know how to look after their race cars, and they know how to keep these things going.
See there, Zach Hudson and Jake Poulin coming down to the attention of their crews. They stayed out the first time that pit road was open. Kenny Brady is going to be the one to lead us back to green here in the 97. Also, TJ Burke, AJ Henderson, Matthew Zwack, and Jack Painter are scheduled to be the top 5 when we go back green. Casey Nemitz, Nathan Rabideau, Chris Wetz, Ryan Araki, and Andrew Schwartz. That's going to be the top 10. Now, we already mentioned the fact that Jordan Worth, who was caught up in that incident, he is mathematically ineligible from advancing into the playoffs. But in terms of Sean Butler, if he's going to have a bad performance, maybe better to have it now and try and also use Bathurst and Darlington to just kind of stop the bleeding, because he came in triple digits above that cut line, 122 points to the good. So the likelihood that he would lose that many points in 3 races and fall out of playoff contention, pretty slim. So these drivers don't have any fast repairs here tonight. So, a little bit of a saving grace there for Sean Butler. His playoff hopes still look like they would be intact.
Yeah, so, I mean, tough night, tough hook. I mean, that's just what it is. It's hard, close racing. There's not much you can really do about that. It looks like the 92 on the bottom side just makes a mistake, and he just drifts up. Difficult. Nothing he can really do.
Green flag back in the air as Brady elected the inside line. My goodness, look at them already fanning out 3 wide, almost 4 wide around the midway portion of this field. Into turn 1 they go. Brady to the point. Henderson on the top side of Burke for second place. The 3 wide back there. You've got your points leader, your former winner, Jonathan Oates, who may have brushed the wall there off of turn 2.
Yeah, the 51 was in the fence. 51 was definitely in the fence, which is Kyle Lawrence short.
That's Malello on the bottom. Balancino, the purple car in the middle. Short, as you alluded to. He's the 3rd car in that 4-wide formation. And up top side, that was the 73 of Oates.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of speed to the 51.
The
yeah, there's multiple. They're 4 wide. They're still 4 wide. They're still trying to sort themselves out, Seth. We got a race on our hands, buddy.
There's the 78 of Rulli Valentine, who had to kind of go to pit road to avoid the incident off of turn 4. He's back in this hornet's nest. Way up on the top side there is Seth Dolan, the 077. Man, that's tight, and there's a wreck. Rulli Valentine around, off the nose of another car, headed for the inside wall. Caution is out.
Yep, and everyone's still trying to wire themselves up and trying to check it all up and figure themselves out as well. So really good job by most of the field getting through there without causing another incident. They'll shuffle themselves down, they'll settle themselves out, and hopefully we'll have a race on our hands once again. Man, did you see how many people were just looking for gaps anywhere they possibly could, Seth?
I mean, that was super tight for about 10 to 12 cars back. And that was around the 20th position. We'll see if we can get a good camera angle here off of turn 2, get an idea of who put that 78, who he went off the nose of. That's Tyler Williams in the 34 to his inside right there. And yeah, I think it actually was the 34 that he went off the nose of, but it almost looked like he may have gotten into the left rear quarter panel of the car in front of him, which initially then shot him down to the left.
It's a very, very difficult one, especially that far back, because the cars are just trying to, everyone's just searching for a bit of free space on the track, is effectively how that's basically working. And, you know, ultimately there's going to be some guys checking up, there's going to be some guys that are a little bit unstable. You just got to keep your eyes as far up the track as you can, react as best as you possibly can, and keep your car going. You got to look after your stuff. That's the most important part.
And I would say, just based off that, as opposed to where Rulli Valentine was running about 10 laps ago, it's going to put a lot of stress on these drivers in terms of strategy in wanting to maintain good track position, because Valentine had himself a good qualifying effort. He was up there at the front, had actually almost gotten himself to the race lead at one point, got involved in that incident, back in traffic, and involved here in the second caution of the day.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you know, look after your stuff. Stay out of the stuff early. Just basically cruising around that 10th sort of spot mark. You keep yourself clear of a lot of the incidents, a lot of the infighting, and all of a sudden, you know, you're just gonna show yourself towards the front end of the pack. But as soon as you get yourself mired in traffic, you've got to fight through a whole bunch of cars. Everyone back there is, remember what I said a few moments ago, everyone is searching for a free bit of space. Everyone is searching for an advantage of some kind and sort. And there's just none to be found.
Pit road was open. We had a couple of drivers towards the tail end of the pack come down pit road, but got this older surface of Michigan. Let's talk about tires. These drivers here tonight, a total of 5 sets available to them, including the set that they started on. So for some of these guys, they may be looking to split in this race maybe into quarters, depending on where the cautions fall, maybe every 25 laps. For others, I would think they might even, if they're trying to maintain that track position, they may even think about just splitting this race in half, run 50 laps in a set of tires, and then the final 50 laps, save those extra sets for if we have ourselves any late race yellows, if everybody wants to come to pit road for fresh rubber.
I was just thinking, if you're towards the back end of all of this, first and foremost, you got damage, come down, let's get that fixed out. That's going to be really, really important. Secondly, if you're towards the tail end of this field, I'm coming down, I'm grabbing fuel here. I'm giving myself some flexibility. We've just ran at least a few laps, you know, was that 1.5 laps basically at full noise? So that's a lot of fuel that's already going to be chugged out of the tank, plus a couple of pacing laps. You get the idea. There's a hole in that tank. Create a margin for yourself. Potentially, that run was a little bit too short to come down and grab tires. If we go green here for about another 3 or 4 laps, I'm probably also, if I'm towards the tail end of the field, come down, grab some tires. Let's give ourselves an offset, create an advantage. Let's drive our way through the field and take up some track position in the middle of this race.
Kenny Brady's going to be leading us back to the green flag here in that 54 machine as the lights are out atop the pace car. Second place will be TJ Burke, AJ Henderson, Matthew Zweck, and Nathan Rabideau going to be the top 5. Good runs here so far for the 18 and the 93 as Zweck comes into this race currently 9th in the points, 28 points to the good over the cut line. And we already talked about Nathan Rabideau, who very well here tonight, 146 points to the good. If he's able to get himself a good finish, then he could very well already lock himself a playoff spot. And of course, if he goes to victory lane, it's academic. He's already locked himself in with the win and you're in system.
Looking for their lanes, and this series, remember, runs a choose rule. Now, if I'm choosing at this point in time, again, if I'm further back, I don't mind taking a compromise line. I don't mind that. I'll grab myself a fair few positions. However, if the lanes are basically even, I think I'm doing exactly what Kenny Brady's done here, and I think I'm taking that top side. I think I want the option of having the momentum, And I want to look after my tires a fair bit more. Kenny Brady's a smart driver. He's won a race. I think he's won a race already this season, or we've interviewed him at least once this season. So, really good head on that guy, and I think he's got another good shot again tonight.
Yep, that win would have been at Charlotte Motor Speedway as we're back under the green. 41 drivers taking this green flag a quarter of the way through tonight's event. 2 drivers are in the garage area involved in the first caution of the evening. That, of course, Sean Butler and Jordan Worth. They will finish 42nd and 43rd respectively here tonight. Battle right now is going to be back around the 9th, 10th position. That's where Andrew Schwartz, Chris Wetz, Alex Martinez there in the 095. First time, at least here on Flatout Racing Network, we've seen him make a start here in the Grand National Series. He's trying to crack the top 10.
Yeah, so I mean, shuffling his way slowly forward. Let's take a look through the field and see who the big movers of the early race are. I'm having a look at Robert Dorman. Started 40th, currently running P20th. That's a gain of 20 positions set. That's a phenomenal start for a guy like that.
And behind him, they're 4 wide again. Waterworth, Short, Palesso, and Margot, and that's a scary situation for the driver of the 12 in Waterworth because coming into tonight, as far as the cut line is concerned, Cosmin Ishinoshu had the final playoff spot. 8 points back, first man out was Gary Waterworth. Now, Cosmin's not in the field here tonight, so Waterworth, at least with a decent finish, can move himself up into the playoff grid, but he's got to keep that car in one piece.
Yeah, he does. And have a look at the driver that's certainly coming through the field and behind him. Nate Stewart, another driver that we've interviewed at least once this season as well. Went with that alternative strategy very, very early on. Now, it didn't play itself out. That's no fault of his own. But he's still making sure that he's putting his car in contention and driving through the field as best as he possibly can.
Bear this in mind as well. He came to pit road after the first caution, and he went with fuel only on that pit stop. Taking, I guess he took tires there on what we assumed was the unscheduled pit stop, or at least I assumed it was the unscheduled pit stop, so definitely off sequence with the rest of the drivers. Casey Nemitz back behind the wheel of the 52 again this week as he goes to the inside of Andrew Schwartz. That's going to be a battle for the 8th position, right behind the 02 of Ryan Araki. Single filed out. Jack Painter drifts up the track a little bit there into turn 1. Opened up the door for Naraki to maybe make a move. Couldn't quite do it. They'll continue to battle behind him. Nemitz not able to get the run he wanted off of turn 2. Schwartz is going to clear him for 8th place. Nemitz now slots in front of the 71 of Chris Wetz. One car we haven't talked about tonight that we ended up seeing, of course, go to victory lane last week at the Indianapolis Road Course, courtesy of Blake Reynolds, is the 62 that's trying to stay up there in the points lead for the Owners' Championship. Tyler Claybaugh doing the driving duties here tonight in that Toyota Supra, currently up in the 18th position. Name that's very familiar to me. Used to race him back in the day on the N2003 sim, and he's trying to battle with Justin Malello. He's been able to pick up a number of spots since the start of this race. Started all the way back in the 36th position, up 19 spots since we started this night's event.
Have a look at Tristan Hagenstein as well. Started 37th, up to 16th. And like you said, Justin Malello, 43rd all the way up to 17th. That's a phenomenal drive. There's a few drivers in and around that sort of number that have jumped a phenomenal number of spots. So, look, a whole bunch of drivers trying to give themselves the best opportunity. I'm taking a quick look. Alan Ballacino, 38th, currently runs in the P12 position. What a start for Alan Ballacino. Qualifying clearly didn't go in his favor. Doesn't matter.
96 of Benjamin Fanning, hard into the wall there in turn 1. Caution flies for the 3rd time.
Well, I think that's pretty much going to guarantee a fuel stop and a tire stop for pretty much everyone here as well.
There's definitely contact between him and another car. Again, though, amazing with an incident in the center of the corner that other drivers were not involved. The wreck avoidance, not only here tonight, but in past weeks, has been on point for these drivers. What probably under normal circumstances should be 5, 6, 7 cars involved have just been solo incidents, 2-car incidents. These drivers do a heck of a job of making sure that more cars don't get torn up. As we'll go back and see what happened. Looked like might have been some contact between himself and I believe
Robert
that
Dorman.
might have, yeah, Dorman.
It's Robert
46.
That's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. So, especially for Dorman, I mean, you know, he was trying to drive his way back through the field. Clearly fresh tires, was showing a lot of pace there. I don't know if he necessarily made a mistake or he just wasn't expecting expecting him to be that far down the track. That's a difficult one for me, so I kind of can't make any comment really on that one. It's just odd.
And the unfortunate thing, especially there for Benjamin Fannin, is the fact that that car looked like it was going to spin with the rear end looking to take the brunt of the safer barrier, but then it overcorrected nose first into the outside wall, of course, where the engine housing is. And as mentioned earlier, with no faster pair, either that car is done for the day or going to be very low on power for the remainder of this race.
Yeah, very. I think necessarily. You got to stay out there. You got to try and collect as many points as you possibly can. But I don't know if that engine's going to be able to last the distance either. Like that was a pretty big shot. To be perfectly honest, I'm expecting that engine probably to expire.
So we've got some drivers playing the strategy, ducking onto pit lane. The first of those was the 54 or the 97, which have you, of Kenny Brady. Also, a couple of other drivers following him down. Casey Nemitz. I saw Matthew Zwack coming down pit lane. Nate Stewart in the 4 also ducked onto pit road. So you've got about roughly half the field decide to come down here under this caution. The other half electing to stay out. And for the most part, those drivers have turned about 12, 13 green flag laps on their tires.
Yeah, it's a good enough period to actually come down here and grab a fresh set of tires, because there's definitely been enough of a green flag run for there to be a huge fall off. The other reason that I'm coming down at this point in time, with 34 laps into the race now, Steph, so that we're over a third. We've got 2/3 to go. This is going to guarantee the race is basically going to be a one-stop from here. Now, if the race is going to be a one-stop from here, I don't want to be on old tires for a huge chunk. That means that I have to split the race into 2 uneven segments, if you will. That means I have to come down a lot earlier onto green flag running than I maybe would like. I want to come down here, I want to grab a fresh set of tires, I want to run all the way through to about, let's say, lap 66, lap 68, sometime about there, come down, grab a fresh set of rubber, get back out there, get back into the race. Now that's if it goes green. And if it doesn't go green, well, I mean, we can just throw all this. This is just here to say a little bit of faffing about and coming up with things.
TJ Bursk in that 194, trying to go coast to coast here at Michigan, and only his second start in the season. Last week at the Indianapolis Road Course was actually his debut on the season. Started 14th and brought it home one position better in the 13th position. Today has been a much more competitive day for him, as he has spent a good portion of this race out in front, been battling hard with drivers to be able to keep that car out in clean air. That's something that we haven't really talked about, and I think it would certainly come into play in terms of also seeing a lot of these drivers really fighting with the cars in the 3 and 4 wide situations off of turn 2, especially is that aero push that they would be feeling running in the dirty air of the cars ahead of them.
Yeah, and even going back to that first incident between Sean Butler and co, I mean, that incident was difficult because, again, both drivers were fighting for track position in terms of they both wanted to be in the draft, they both wanted to get down as low as possible, and yet at the same time, they both knew their cars were going to push up the track a fair way. So look, I mean, difficult. With the amount of cars we've got out here on track as well, the aero push, especially in the mid to late pack, is quite huge, and the pressure on those tires. Remember, we've got about half the field here who's taken a fresh set of rubber, calmed down, at least grabbed fuel. So strategy is going to be massively offset. Keep your eyes from about, who was our first pit laner? Somewhere around 20th on back. So, look, it's going to be tight here, and I think we're actually set for probably what is going to be the most exciting period of the race so far.
Saw that blue cone off of turn 2. That's their choose cone, and Ryan Araki was scheduled to roll off 6th. He chose the outside, picked up 2 spots there for this upcoming restart. He's going to be on the outside of row 2 as TJ Burst gets us back underway. Nathan Rabideau going to follow him across the start finish line. Henderson, Araki, and Jack Painter. We got a spinner in the back. One car headed for pit road. I think that was the 4.
It was Nate Stewart, 100% Nate Stewart. That's an odd one.
Caution
Something odd has
out.
happened there.
And that car, you can see the gray smoke pluming from underneath that Toyota Supra. That is pretty much day over for that driver.
Oh, it's an incident.
Did he get hit from behind? Was there a stack up? I don't know, but we'll go back and find out.
It's a little bit of both. The cars on the outside of Nate Stewart, I'm looking at Hagenstein, and I think it was Seth Knoll that was in the middle, just on the outside of him as well. There's a fair few cars hard up against the fence. I don't know if Knoll's necessarily just gotten a bad restart. You know what? It's not Knoll. It's the 27 of Hagenstein that's come from behind Knoll. He's gotten a phenomenal restart. Tried to go to the outside of Knoll. I think he's either hit a shift and the car snaps sideways, or something has happened and he drifts down, collects Seth Knoll, and pushes him down the road into Stewart.
There were a lot of cars in trouble. I mean, even behind them, I think that was Zach Hudson got a shot from behind by, I think that might have possibly been the 33 of Isaac Johnson. I mean, there were a lot of drivers. I don't know if that was a case of them trying to anticipate the start or maybe drivers just spinning their tires, but we had a lot of stack up taking place around 15th back to around the 30th position.
Well, you got to remember too that that's where those fresh tires and the new tires sort of meet too. So ultimately, anywhere around there, you're going to have guys that are restarting at different paces, and it's quite difficult, especially when you are one of the first guys that's on those fresh tires. Around the guys that have been running mid to back of the pack, getting a first chance of the night to run a little bit further ahead. The places that they're looking for is a little bit different. You know, all sorts of these things. It's a difficult one. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think everyone could have given each other a little bit more room and we would have gotten through there fine, but I think the issue is that everyone's trying to search again for that clear space on the track, and there's not a lot that a whole bunch of those guys can do.
Big hit there nonetheless for Nate Stewart in that 4 machine, who is still yet to come down pit lane. I believe he's still out there under pacing and now ducking onto pit road to come to the attention of his crew, try and see if they can get that thing at least somewhat repaired and back out there. But again, as we saw, the shot especially was to the left front of his machine. You could just see the gray smoke kind of lingering there from underneath the hood as he was sitting in the infield grass. So he may be the next driver to make that hard left-hand turn to the garage area. We mentioned already 2 drivers out of the race. Add a third as the 212 of Wyatt Tinsley. He brought his car to the infield about 4 laps ago, and right now looks like he would be scheduled to finish this race in the 41st position.
That's unfortunate. I mean, a difficult night at the office. It's not been easy. But, look, I mean, such is life, unfortunately. Sometimes you got to take the good with the bad, and, you know, hopefully he'll roll out next week at Bathurst and be back to his best and brightest, so.
Yeah, we talked about Bathurst and just how it's going to be throwing a curveball for these drivers. Let's also bear in mind is too, there's no set number of laps for that Bathurst race. It's going to be a timed race for these guys, and I know that you've actually run timed races. I mean, how difficult is it to strategize a timed road course race?
Difficult, actually. What you're looking at is average lap time. Obviously, early on, the lap time is going to be a little bit faster, and then it's going to ease back a fair bit. I'd expect the lap times for these cars at Bathurst to be around that 2:15, 2:16 sort of mark, average. So what you're going to do is you're going to map that out. You're base your fuel tank. You know, I can go X many laps, multiply that by the lap time, and then pick your strategy. Because it's a road course, the tire fall off isn't anywhere near as massive. Basically, you're just going to want to be to run as nice and as consistent as possible. Pretty much exactly what they did at Indy last week. Instead of, you know, driving to a lap number, you convert the time number across to a lap number and convert your fuel numbers and have a look at what the options are.
Gonna have to wait here for confirmation. It might just be some connection problems, but I'm seeing 2 other drivers that just came down pit lane that may have also called it an early night. Tyler Williams in the 34 and Rudy Valentine in the 78, who started this race from the inside of row 2. Looks like their evenings may be over. Yeah, so tough break there for those 2 guys, especially there for Rudy Valentine, who was looking to be a multi-time winner on the season. Of course, won back at the chaotic race of Monza. But looks like he will not be making it to the halfway point of this race. Same for, as mentioned, Tyler Williams in the 34. This is going to be some good news for drivers like Nate Stewart that we just saw have that incident. He has returned back to the racetrack. He's actually on pit road again for some further repairs, but he did get back out onto the racing surface, albeit 1 lap down. I mean, for him, other drivers that are lap down, like Noah Carmichael, Mart Sabetka, Benjamin Fanning, they may not necessarily have competitive cars, but as we know, especially getting down towards the end of the season, every position, every point counts.
Yeah, that's it. It's about getting back out there and minimizing your losses. It's been a difficult race. You know, multi-car wide sort of styles and scenarios has been creating a lot closer racing, I think, than a lot of these drivers have been looking for so far these races, which is, it's disappointing. that it's led to contact, but also not unexpected. Nate Stewart's now taken the option to take that car behind the pit wall as well. So, look, his race is over. I would have preferred if he hung around, turned another 5-10 laps, make sure that he's putting in laps, hoping for a whole bunch of guys to continue obviously having issues. And you got to try and pick up every single point you possibly can. You gain nothing by calling it quits,
Only 67 points above that cut line. That is not safe enough to guarantee that he would be in the playoffs in 3 weeks' time. So it'll be interesting to see with his DNF tonight just how close the gap between him and that cut line is going to be heading into that 2 hours of Bathurst next week. But TJ Bursk, he's had that car out in clean air for a majority of this race so far, about to put us at 60 laps to go. Ryan Araki again playing the choose cone strategy. He's going to be restarting the outside of row 1 with Nathan Rabideau, Andrew Schwartz, and Jack Painter, the top 5, as the green flag flies once again. Boy, the 2 guys on the inside line got going. Araki seemed to have caught napping.
Yeah, which is disappointing, because I actually thought Naraki might have actually made a really, really good decision here. Ultimately, he's just going to sort of settle himself back in. There's guys here now starting to shuffle their way up on those little bit of fresher tires. So ultimately, he's going to just keep making sure he's cruising, he's aware of his margins, all the cars around him, he's giving them space. If he's not faster, that's fine. Just keep making sure that you're watching those cars around. Give yourself the best opportunity at the back end of the race.
Love that pan camera we have there in turn 3, looking at the cars coming down the back straightaway, because you can see just how much movement takes place all the way through the field. Drivers trying to pick where they want to make their moves, take their runs going into that third corner.
That's just it. It's about maintaining that momentum, but ultimately it's also about making sure that if you see a car maybe 3 lanes ahead of you, that's 3 cars ahead of you, that's all of a sudden he's taking a bubble, he's slow. If you can pick that up nice and early, pick your lane early, you compromise everyone else around you, you box them in. They're forced to follow that guy. They're forced to roll out of the throttle. You can just stay right in it. You can blow by those guys. So it's important to keep your vision, keep those eyes down the track as far as you can.
There's Gary Waterworth in the 12, looking to the inside of the 53 of Justin Malello. How about Malello coming into this one? He currently finds himself 36 points behind the cut line. Started this race from dead last, but he's been able to work his way now up to the 12th position. He's kept the fenders on that machine and making good forward progress here, looking for a solid points day at Michigan.
That's just it. I mean, starting from the back end, you just play it patient. Watch everyone around you. Learn what you can by running wherever they aren't running. There's a lot of opportunities that present themselves right throughout the race, and just qualifying at the back doesn't mean anything.
You look for those fresher tires up there in the third. We'll make it now 4th groove through 3 and 4. That's Blake McCandless in the 066. He's going to swing around Justin Malello and kind of get boxed in there behind, I believe that was the 52 of Casey Nemes. Now he'll shoot up the middle. He and that 54 of Kenny Brady, they are the 2 that are trying to gain the track position on each other with the freshest tires in the field.
Yeah, look at them go as well. They've managed to slice their way all the way up into this top 10 already. That's a phenomenal run. So keep your eyes on McCandless. He's having a phenomenal night. I think he's made a really, really smart call here, and he's driving that car as hard as he needs to and no harder.
What you saw right there, he tucked in behind Casey Nemes. Look at him running up there about maybe a whole groove higher than that middle line, and he's getting such momentum off the corner. Watch as he tries to pull up here to the back bump of the 70 of Alan Balancino. He's up to the 7th position. He can see the race leaders, and in terms of lap times right now, he's almost upwards of a half second faster, taking the longer way around the racetrack.
Yeah, but that he's got to build that run, right? All those guys that are boxing themselves down on that bottom lane, they're struggling for grip. They're pushing their tires way, way, way harder. He's also running up there where there's a lot cleaner air. Yeah, there's going to be a few marbles start to flick their way towards the top end of that track, but ultimately he's looking after those tires as well as being quicker.
Kenny Brady has taken notice as well. He's now migrated up to the 3rd line. There you see him back there to the outside of Jonathan Oates. That's around the 9th position. Took him a little bit more time, though, to get up to that 3rd groove. That's why McCandless has been able to put some daylight between himself and the Brady machine.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether or not McCandless still wants to run it around the outside, or is suddenly enough of these guys are recognizing that they've got to get up there, they've got to cover him off, because the instant that somebody says, hey, I need to stop this guy's progress forwards, he's going to get boxed in. Watch this. This will be the real deciding factor now.
Ryan Rocky there moved up in front of him off of turn 2, but they leave that lane available again for McCandless. He's going to get to third. He looks to get to second off of turn 2. By the time we get to turn 1, there may just be one car to beat, and that's the pole sitter, TJ Bursk.
Yeah, everyone bobbling in there behind. The 93 machine wanted to get to the top side. He got blocked off. There was no way that he could really get that far up. So all of a sudden, everyone's watching McCandless and going, hey, we got to get around this guy. We got to follow this guy around. And that's why you see the 02 machine blocking him off.
And on board with Kenny Brady, he's gotten back to the bumper of McCandless, who gets blocked in behind Naraki. This is the battle between the two drivers with the freshest tires now. It's for the third position.
Yeah, keep your eyes on both of these drivers. Naraki's been quick. He's run a phenomenal race so far, but he's been up towards the front most of the night. McCandless has had to fight his way through traffic. Has that done damage to his tires?
Saw somebody way up the track there. I think that might have possibly been the 026 of Tyler Gary. I think he may have actually brushed the wall, and he's headed for pit road.
Yeah, unfortunate for Gary. Yeah, rough night. I mean, Tyler Gary, I think was already... Yeah, he's done. He's actually just towed that car, put it straight behind the pit wall. So unfortunate night for him. But keep your eyes on this battle up at the front. Oh, hang on. Is that Brady leading?
That is. He has now gotten to the point. Not quite clear yet, though, on Bursk, as he'll try and get the spot. And here comes at 18. I was wondering when we'd see Matthew Zwack get up here, because the top three that had the fresh tires were Brady, McCandless, and Zwack. But Zwack was kind of mired back around the 8th, 9th position. Now he's making the forward progress, cracking into the top 5.
Starting to look at McCandless, and I get the feeling he may have burned up his stuff. I could hear somebody's tires squealing going into a lot of the corners, and I actually think it might have been McCandless. He was just pushing those fronts a little bit too hard on corner entry just to try and get the car to rotate. So I think his pace is starting to fall away a little bit. I think Zwack's going to have him covered.
Those three drivers mentioned, Brady, McCandless, and Zwack. They are the drivers on the freshest tires that worked their way up here into the top 5. You got to go all the way back to the 10th position, where the fresh tires of Dalton Cowden are trying to make some forward progress. He's trying the inside line there on Jack Painter. That would be for 9th, just ahead of Alex Martinez, just behind Alan Balancino in the 70.
Yeah, look, Zwack's just gotten past McCandless as well. So like I said, Zwack has better tires now. McCandless has burned up his stuff. That's the difficulty, isn't it, Seth? When you've got those fresh tires, you want to make those moves. You want to be aggressive, but at the same time, you got to make sure you hold something in reserve. This is a difficult period of the race here because Kenny Brady's got phenomenal tires. But again, has he burned something extra off? I have a feeling Zwack might have something for our leader here.
And looking in terms of lap times, I would agree with you. He is running just about equal lap times with Kenny Brady, and that's even with Brady having that clean air to be able to work with, as Zwack quickly starts to pull to the back bumper of TJ Bursk. But how about the Supras? 1, 2, 3 here across the start-finish line. Mentioned about Tyler Gary, his evening over. He's had some great runs in the past couple of weeks, was very competitive during the Tsukuba Nationals. He also had a great performance last week at the road course of Indianapolis, but apparently here tonight, the Michigan International Speedway not playing out to his favor. Also a couple of other drivers who have officially called it an evening. You mentioned Nate Stewart, also Benjamin Fanning out of the race. So that brings our total of 8 drivers currently in the garage area. We've got 35 drivers running on the racetrack, and 32 of them still staying on the lead lap.
Yeah, I was just keeping an eye on lap times too, Seth. It looks like Zwack has no longer got all that much for Kenny Brady. Kenny Brady is the guy that's really leading us away. He's looked after his tires. He's done all he needs to. Well, Zach responds this time by, manages to get back in line with him. But have a look at the difference in everyone else's times. TJ Bursk, guy who last pitted on lap 20, car way up high and in the fence. I think we might have lost someone there.
That was McCandless. Way up, and I don't know if he brushed the wall or not, but look at the momentum he's losing here down the back straightaway. Something's wrong on that car.
He scraped the wall. Like I said, I think he was just pushing those tires way too hard on entry, and he was scrubbing them quite aggressively. Zwack's going to send it by TJ Bursk. Bursk is not losing time to these guys, and he last pit on lap number 20. There are 14 laps difference between our leaders and Bursk is doing a phenomenal job of looking after that rubber.
Saw another car get the wall there. That was, I believe, Tyler Claybaugh in the 62 as he starts to drift back outside of the top 20, about to fall to Lucas Palesso for the 24th position. Battle for second place continues to run only a car length separation. Bursk not letting Zwack get away just yet, but bear in mind there's about 14 laps difference between the tires on the 18 and the tires on the 194.
It's starting to really settle into that sort of margin, so I'm not too worried. I actually think Bursk will just be happy just to hang with these guys. Recognizes that he opted to not come down pit road at the wrong time. The last caution before it goes for a long green flag run. You feel stuck, you feel helpless because you just want to buy that track position. Eventually you got to come. At some point, it's just going to go green, and he's just guessed wrong. But have a look at the battle that's formed in this mid-pack behind these guys from 4th place on back. It's phenomenal. You got a whole bunch of cars that are forcing each other for a little bit of track position.
You got Dalton Cowden there, that 117, those fresher tires kind of boxed in the midst of all these other drivers. Man, I don't know if these drivers have spotters here that are keeping an eye out for them or if they're clearing themselves. It was really close there with Cowden just across the nose of the Subway Mustang of Andrew Schwartz about a lap and a half ago, but he made it work as there's still great battling from the 4th position back to around, oh man, what was all the way back there? I think that might have been the 73 of Jonathan Oates, who right now is being scored. Actually, that's not Oates, I'm sorry. That's actually, I believe, the 15 of Keith Sherman in the 24th position. So, you know, that's only about roughly a second and a half separating those drivers. That's really close at a 2-mile track.
Yeah, and especially when you consider that a lot of those guys are on different tire strategies as well, and they're not falling off the leaders. Keep your eyes on TJ Bursk at the front as well. Zwack's gotten around him, but he's hanging with him. The other thing I was going to say as well is that 117 of Cowden, he has to be careful, and I think he's being really
we got a spinner! The 095 around, collecting Alan Balancino. Got a couple others scattering through the infield grass. Caution's going to fly.
Great job by the admin team to catch that one as early as they possibly did. The admin team here as well, a lot of the cautions that have been thrown so far this evening, not iRacing cautions, have actually been thrown by the admins. The admins are basically catching things as they happen and punching that caution flag. And it's giving all of our drivers the ability to see, hey, there's a yellow out for a reason. I need to back my pace down, and it's protecting a lot of these cars. So yes, great job by nearly the entire field, the guys that are spinning, everyone to make sure that their cars are clean. But the admin team deserves some big raps for that as well.
Absolutely. This was up inside of the top 10 at the time. We'll see where the initial contact begins. Alex Martinez might get a little bit of assistance here as it almost looks like Balancino was right up on the back bumper of Andrew Schwartz. I don't know if there was a little bit of contact there that then got him tight and up the track, or if it was just that arrow push we're talking about, but barely clips the left rear corner panel of Martinez.
Yeah, it's a difficult moment. Remember how I said as well that these cars have been fighting for such a long period of time, and this is the Xfinity cars. If you're talking in terms of stock cars, these are the hardest cars, basically, to drive on iRacing. The car just wants to wiggle all over the track. To get it to settle down and hold its line, it's very, very difficult for these guys to do, and they've done a phenomenal job of that. This is a really good opportunity, though, now. This is going to equalize the field. Tires mean not very much here. Everyone's going to shuffle down pit road.
No doubt about that. So at least for some of those guys like Matthew Zwack and Kenny Brady, the strategy definitely worked out for them. They gained a lot of track position, taking advantage of the fresh rubber, and now everybody should be on a level playing field. We'll see if that #1 pit stall works out for Bursk. No, it was actually a drag race between Brady and Zwack for the race lead off of pit road. Give it to the driver of the 54.
Oh, what a phenomenal run through the pit road there for those guys as well. That's a great job. They've got to look after their stuff now as well. Big run to the end of the race from here. You know, it's not an easy thing to do from here to the end of the race. You've got to look after that rubber. We've got 57 laps in the book, so that means we've got about, 43 to go.
And we did have a driver that was off the lead lap. I believe they actually already taken the lucky dog, so we are going to have a total of 33 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green. We have 2 drivers that are currently off the lead lap. One of them is Noah Carmichael, 5 laps down. He's still out there and running. Mark Zabedka, though, he actually had returned to the racetrack when he was 5 laps down. He has since made another trip to pit road, has lost 10 more laps since I last checked, and is 15 laps down, still sitting in his pit stall. So obviously it's not the night that he was looking for, as he's in that 25 car, another team that's trying to keep themselves up there in the owner points.
Oh, man. Alright, so settle it down, back it all the way down, reset yourself. We've had a phenomenal green flag run. Now you're going to have grip again. You're going to be racing around, guys, with all of that fresh rubber. Remember what I said, though? The run to the end of the race from here, it's just over 40 laps. You have to look after that rubber. I have a feeling as well that there's also going to be another fuel stop. I'm not 100% sure that these guys can get home from here, Seth, so it's going to be a difficult run to the end.
Yeah, they do have a 100% fuel capacity, but yeah, just now past the halfway point. It'd be interesting. And I almost wonder, too, even if they can make it on fuel, would the need for tire grip draw them to pit road here to maybe
No.
try and take some advantage of those fresh tires in terms of lap times?
No, the issue, okay, so the issue here, right, is that you're losing basically an entire lap in terms of track position, right? Because to come down pit road, get the car woed up, get the car back into the gas and get out of there, the time that you're going to gain isn't anywhere near that same sort of stretch of the imagination. So splitting this into 2 20-lap runs, the only reason you're going to do that is if you cannot make it on fuel.
These drivers will be next time around out of turn 2, I believe. They'll get the 1 green signal and they'll do the choose cone. Kenny Brady showing the way. Mention the fact that he's a former winner this season. That, of course, was at Charlotte Motor Speedway where he led 18 laps en route to that victory. And a big part of that, too, was because he was off pit sequence with a number of the drivers in the field. And the fresh tires that he had midway portion of the race gained him the track position, which he then maintained at the end of the race en route to taking the checkered flag. Kind of a little bit of deja vu here today in terms of the strategy that he's played out, but there's going to be still just a tick over 40 laps left in this race. Still plenty can happen, especially with how chaotic and exciting these race restarts have been.
Yeah, I mean, again, difficult. Very, very difficult. Different kind of track, but at the same time, clean air is so important. And both Charlotte, same again here. You want to be able to make sure that you can put that car exactly where you need to put the car, right? So, look, both drivers have got an opportunity here off the front row. Let's see which way they go with the choose cone.
Like Kenny Brady's going to elect the top side here.
That's consistent.
Black will take the inside.
Well, actually, no. Kenny Brady's been taking the bottom the last couple of restarts, hasn't he? It's been Naraki that's been opting towards the top.
Naraki chooses the inside this time.
Well, Naraki's choosing track position. Every single time that we've come to the choose cone, Naraki's chosen track position. Track position, by and large, has been to the outside on most of these restarts. Here, this time, track position was to the inside, so he just immediately opts in that direction.
Top 10, we go back green. Brady, Swack, Burke, Schwartz, and Naraki. That's the top 5. It'll be Nathan Rabideau, Jack Painter, Jonathan Oates, Dalton Cowden, and Zachary Thornton. First time we've mentioned the 135 here tonight, as he's going to complete the top 10. Green flag set to fly one more time here at Michigan. Whoa, Naraki was ready to go. Swack was not. They stack up on the inside as Brady gets away with the lead.
Brady gets away with the lead, but if Naraki can get to that back bumper of Zwack here, maybe that inside line will be a little bit quicker. I don't think Naraki wants to do that, though. I think Naraki wants to just get by Zwack. I think he wants an opportunity
we got a car up the track. That was Martinez. He was able to hang on to it. You saw the tire smoke, because I don't know if there was contact or if he just took that corner too fast, but everyone keeps it pointed in the right direction.
Ooh, what a save. Great job by the entire field as well to make sure they gave room for him to save it. Now take a look at Burst. Remember how I said Burst was really, really good on tires? Well, I think we're going to see another long green flag run here, and that means if that plays out the way I think it does, TJ Burst is going to be the driver to watch.
Schwartz, Nathan Rabideau mixing it up for that final spot inside the top 5. Further back, you have about 3-4 drivers that are battling just inside and just outside of the top 10. AJ Henderson. There's that 135 of Zachary Thornton and that Matt Benedetto-looking machine. And just behind them, Justin Malello in the 53. Still up here, right on the outskirts of the top 10.
And you know what, Seth? I just took another look through the driver roster. Do you have a clone? And is his name Seth Knoll?
He is not. He is not my clone.
Are you sure? You sure about that?
I'm fairly sure.
Did they just take all the talent out of you and put it back into Seth Knoll? Is that sure?
Here's how I know that it is not a clone, because Seth Knoll qualified for this race. I would not have qualified for this. I'd have been one of the fans up in the stand thinking about next week.
Yeah, shaking the flag, not really enjoying yourself, going, oh man, I got to eat a donut. That's about the only circular thing I'm going to be turning around today.
Pretty much. That's the only donut I would have gotten out of the day.
Oh man. What a phenomenal race we've at least seen thus far too. Like, I mean, if you have a look back through the pack, everyone's having fun. Like, the racing's close, and we go week to week with a lot of different cars and that are potentially able to win a race, and these guys, generally when we speak to them as well, they're having an absolute blast. That's what I enjoy about FTF South. How many do you think will be enjoying themselves after 2 hours at one of my favorite tracks next week?
Oh boy, I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of drivers that are going to be heading into that race with questions, and I think that those drivers are then going to be leaving that racetrack with questions.
Questions, anger. The only questions they're really going to be asking is why did we even come to this racetrack with these style of cars? It's going to be difficult next week. That much is for certain.
I almost wonder, though, I mean, a number of the drivers that took part in those Tsukuba Nationals, I almost wonder with that kind of a timed race if that might have helped prepare some of these guys that would have had those initial questions as, man, look at this battle for the lead. TJ Burst got a nice run there at the start-finish line. He's going to go back to the point. That 194, he's done a great job of getting himself back out in clean air, but again, Kenny Brady has proved he seems to be a little bit better on the long run, albeit last time he had the fresher tires.
That's what I was saying. If you actually have a look at the average pace and the fall off, it was TJ Burst was only 0.1 of a second a lap slower on 14 lap older tires than Kenny Brady. That's a huge margin to have managed to save. 0.1 of a second of 14 laps difference. That's a phenomenal job looking after the rubber. I actually wonder if TJ Burst isn't in the prime spot to win this thing.
No, it's incredible too. You see different drivers. You can tell that they're really good at a certain type of track. We saw TJ Burst last week. He ran up inside the top 15 at the Indianapolis road course, but never really was a contender for the win. I've been watching guys like Tristan Hagenstein. Remember we talked to him when he had back-to-back great finishes at the short tracks at Nashville Fairgrounds and then a couple of weeks later at North Wilkesboro. He said, I love these short tracks. I wish there were more short tracks on the schedule. I'm not quite as confident when we go to the road courses or the big tracks. We've seen him kind of have some struggles here tonight, involved in a couple of incidents. It's amazing how these drivers, they have these wheelhouse tracks and then they have to kind of adapt themselves to the other tracks on the schedule.
I mean, it's, at the end of the day, Seth, it's about, he looks like he's better on the brakes. He looks like he's better rotating the car at lower speeds. He's mid to high speeds. It's all about being smooth. It's all about those higher steering ratios, really applying the wheel nice and steadily, easily, getting back to the power, using certain throttle percentages to look after the tires. Obviously, that's an issue for him. He's better at gradually bringing the throttle up a lot quicker. Steering wheel, it's a lot smoother. Even though you're standing, you're putting more input, you're turning the car quicker around. The distance to get the car turned around is a lot shorter. You're still going to be smooth with those inputs. It's just that the inputs are a lot quicker. You're in and then you're out. You're in and then you're out, sort of thing.
Now, I know that obviously in a point system with the winning, you're in for the playoffs, and obviously as well with how we've seen a lot of moving pieces in the point standings in the last couple of weeks, you can't really take anything for granted in terms of the playoff grid, but I would hazard a guess just based off the fact that drivers coming into this race that could not mathematically get themselves into the playoffs, drivers like Rich Jameson, Jack Painter, Jordan Worth, they were about 138, 139 points out behind the cut line. Drivers that came into this race like Rabideau and Schwartz, they're both having solid outings right now in 6th and 7th. They were over 120 points above the cut line coming into this race. If they finish with top 10s here in 2 races remaining, I would hazard a guess they've locked themselves off playoff spots points-wise, regardless of the next 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, hardcore lock themselves in? No. Mathematical just about impossibility? Yes. They're going to need basically 2 back-to-back weeks where they score next to no points and their rivals have flawless races. That's the thing. It is so difficult for both of those circumstances to go on, especially when you're trying to point your way in. Yeah, you can come out. All you've got to focus on, though, over the next 2 weeks, if you're in and around that cut line, is not necessarily what are the other guys doing. If you do that, you've let them get into your head. If you go out there and you just focus on your own race, what do I need to do? What are my targets? Where do I want to position the car? How much risk do I take? That's a big factor, especially with Bathurst next week. It's all about risk management at Bathurst. If you don't have a bad week, if you have 2 average weeks, a lot of those guys are just going to be like, yeah, we're in. It's a lock-in. You just take an average finish and get in. Done. Easy as.
And here's the thing, too. When you're in system, let's bear in mind that only 3 drivers that are battling for the Grand National Series Championship have gone to victory lane this season. There's been a lot of drivers from the FTF Cup Series that have come down. They've been trying to help teams in the respective owner points. You know, we've seen Brian Mercurio go to victory lane. We saw Blake Reynolds pick up his 6th victory of the Grand National Series season last week. I guarantee you we're going to see a lot of those drivers who love the road courses. They're going to be back in respective cars next week at Bathurst. It has put what we've seen in other leagues in terms of playoff stature, it has put the emphasis on consistency to make sure that you're going to have yourself in a good point situation to get into the playoffs if you're not able to find victory lane.
And that's it. You have to come out. Yes, a phenomenal win. Come out, get that win. That's a great finish. Phenomenal job if you're actually able to manage to do that, especially in a field with the strength that we have. But if you also don't come out and show up every single week, if you have one win and you get yourself into the playoff standings, and then you're outside of the top 15 for the remainder of the season, you don't really have a hope at winning that championship. You've got to make sure by coming into the playoffs with consistency, you're giving yourself a lot of confidence, and you're also going to be aware of what it takes to finish in those sorts of a spot. And that's far more important and far more valuable to me than winning a race. I would rather point my way in as 2nd, 3rd, 4th in terms of the overall point standings than have a win-in system, to be perfectly honest, because I know that I can fight those guys every single week, and that gives me the confidence at the tail end of the season to go out and win a championship.
We're looking here at Ryan Araki. You saw there we focused on the 12 of Gary Waterworth, right now running in 17th. He would move in to the 11th playoff position with Kazuma Nishinoshi not in the field here tonight, but Ryan Araki, who is behind Waterworth right now as far as trying to get into the playoffs, if he were to win, that then just moves the whole grid down another spot. So Waterworth would then once again find himself on the outside looking in. I think that's what's on Araki's mind right now. Obviously, he'd love a good points day to keep himself in contention for a playoff spot, but he wants to go into Bathurst. He wants to go into Darlington, 2 very difficult tracks to finish out the regular season, worry-free, knowing that he's going to be battling for that championship trophy by the time we take the green at Daytona.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, settle yourself. Exactly what I said at the top of the show. Go into those last 2 races and have them be throwaway races. That's a phenomenal thing. You can go out there and you can just have fun the next 2 weeks. You can make sure that you're settled, that everything's functioning the way that you want it to. And especially with Bathurst in particular, I cannot stress enough how difficult it is to get cars, regulation GT style cars around Bathurst for an extended period of time. Let alone Xfinity cars, stock cars of any shape, let alone the Xfinity cars of, one of the more difficult cars to do such a thing. So next week I think is going to be such a wild card round. I'm ready to chalk it up, similar to the way that we would chalk up Daytona, the super speedways, to a little bit more of a lottery system, because it's going to take that. A lot of guys are going to slap the wall next week. A lot of guys are going to slap the wall next week. Make that a guarantee that's going to be happening, because professional drivers in better cars designed for those things, they collect the wall on the regular at Bathurst. That's the kind of track it is. It is difficult. Have you ever heard of, I'm thinking of one of the street courses, and it's just dropped off my mind, but it's difficult. Starts with an M, not Monza. It's another one of those ones whereby GT3s go to, and tracks get blocked all the time. Tracks have been blocked at Bathurst.
Driver that is very quietly, literally on my end, snuck his way up into the top 5. That's Max Brady. Good run there for him as he's into that 5th position. You got Kenny Brady to the inside up ahead of Ryan Naraki. And one thing I've been noticing here is, for the most part, when these guys were all single file, they were running, you can see the seams separating those 5 distinctive grooves here on the front straightaway and of course into the corner. They've been kind of running, straddling the seam between grooves 2 and 3 if we're going to number them from the bottom. Remember we saw those fresh tires of Kenny Brady and Blake McCandless. They were way up there in the 4th and 5th group. Nobody has ventured up there. Will the tires just be too worn here the longer the run goes on for that groove to even come into play?
Not necessarily. I mean, when I'm running both Auto Club Michigan, that's generally my preferred grill. I'm generally trend towards the top of the track. The issue is that the grip isn't there for an extended period of time, so it does take a fair bit of time for the grip to actually get laid down in those higher grooves. And by the time that it gets up there, it's generally too late in the run for it to really matter, so you're just better off just running further down the track. I don't know if these guys are nobody's really tried it yet. Nobody's been wanting to be that exploratory driver. Everyone just kind of wants to single file it out. I think it's time for just one of these drivers just to set it up there. Let's feel it out. Let's make sure. I'm maybe looking at the 67 machine. I think has probably got the best opportunity because he's got a little bit of a gap ahead. He's just about to get to the bumper of the 05, but he's got a little bit of a gap back. He's not going to lose too much time by running up there. He's not going to lose a spot.
Yeah, we've seen quite a number of times this season. Obviously, we're very used to Andrew Schwartz starting at the back of the pack. Sometimes it has worked for him, sometimes it has not. When we ended up taking over the broadcasting duties on the schedule, he was actually the overall points leader at that time, but hit a streak of bad luck, especially with the starting track position he had at the short tracks, kind of being mired back in traffic and sustaining damage in those incidents and those races. It lost him the points lead. Now, he still comes into this race second in the overall standings, or actually now third after last week, 95 points out, but still comfortably up there as far as gaining himself a playoff position as well, a total of 135 points ahead of the cut line.
Have a look at that car, that 67 machine as well. It's clean. It's clear. He's running himself a very quick, very consistent, very issue-free race, and it's been a difficult night to actually settle in and run, a clean race. It has been a tough night for quite a number of drivers in the field that I expected to be running quite a lot better off. So for Schwartz heading towards the playoffs, yeah, he's had a few weeks of bad luck. This is the kind of week where he sits down and he starts to rebuild. And it's important to have one of these weeks before the playoffs. He's gotten his bad luck out of the way. Yeah, he's no longer the points leader. But again, when we get to playoffs, that's going to reset itself. It's not necessarily going to be that big of an issue for him. I think he's just going to get his head down here, take a lot away from this, and say, hey, yes, I've still got it. I'm still right where I want to be. Let's go win this championship in a couple weeks' time.
Barr crossed the start-finish line, just put the 22nd completed lap on this stint on the board. Longest run we've had so far here tonight, and that's what's making me nervous in this battle for 6th place. Not a lot of space being given between Ryan Araki and AJ Henderson. Just one slight slip-up by either one of those drivers, and we could have very well had yet another caution come out with 20 laps to go.
Keep your eyes on Naraki as well. Remember, this guy was up at second place for an extended period of time. He was knocking on the door of TJ Bursk. He wanted by. He's now dropping like an absolute rock, and I think he's about to lose his spot to the 189 here of AJ Henderson. So he's got a lot of work to do. I think he's burned up his stuff. I think he's been a little bit too aggressive, and now he's suffering for it.
Yeah, you talked about the fact that more than likely, if these drivers can make it on fuel, we're not going to see them on pit road for the remainder of this race. I would hazard a guess this is around the time we're going to start to see who were those that were saving their tire rubber, who are those that used it up. We're going to start to see the kind of comers and goers here in these final 20 laps.
Yeah, and I mean, comers and goers right throughout the field, right throughout the night as well. There's been a lot of guys who've been sitting back, who've been trying to play things patient. I'm just having a look down in P9, the 135 machine. That's Zachary Thornton. What a race he's had. Started in P29 all the way up to P9. That's a phenomenal night. He's continuing to work his way forward as well. I think he's on with a shot to actually have a real good chance of grabbing a couple more spots before this thing is done as well.
And what a great run there as well, a comeback run for Alex Martinez. I actually noticed, of course, we saw him involved in the last caution where he got together with another driver off of turn 4, I believe it was Balancino. He actually, when he spun, he got the car refired and was able to maintain a spot inside the top 15. I think he restarted this race in the 12th position, so he didn't really lose a whole lot. Came down pit road with the race leader, so a great job of being able to keep the spots that he had, and he still has a shot of finishing inside the top 15.
Forget on this restart as well, Alec actually got sideways going down into 1 and 2 when we got initially underway, so put a lot of extra wear, a lot of heat into those tires. So for him to not only have that issue and then get back into it and keep his machine towards the front of the field, that's a phenomenal drive from Alec Martinez. Another guy that's really starting to show his stuff towards the tail end of the field, tail end of the season.
Absolutely. There's Nathan Rabideau in the 93. Driver who I kind of get the feeling if he could just finish where he's at, he would be good to make it into the playoffs on points alone. 146 points above the cut line coming into this race. He's running ahead of Gary Waterworth. Obviously, Cosmo Shinoshu not in the field here tonight. A lot of the competition that he needs to stay ahead of, he is ahead of on the racetrack. And One driver that I'm really going to be interested if he ends up racing next week is Kazuma Nishinoshu, and where he is going to be situated. He'll be below the cut line, but by how much? Because Gary Waterworth, I think that's a driver that might have been saving his tires on this run. Last I had covered him, I think he was running around 17th, 18th. He's picked up 4 spots since then, up in the 14th spot and looking for more.
Yeah, he is. He's really starting to come to the fore as well. Reasonable pace at this point in time. Not overly quick, not overly slow. He's just sort of there. I think he's just got to keep building, make sure that he's having a consistent run. We're, you know, 16 laps to the end of the race here. There's an opportunity to grab maybe another couple spots, finish inside the top 10. That'll be a great points night for Waterworth. And if you're trying to scrap your way back in at the very tail end, yeah, you could come out here. You could try and force the car to do things and to race harder than you want to, but Waterworth hasn't done that. He's just come out here and chalked up another consistent finish, and again, another shot in a couple weeks' time to get himself into those playoffs and have a crack at the championship.
TJ Bursk, as mentioned, only his 2nd start on the season, made his debut last week, and right now, about 15 laps away from capturing his first checkered flag, completing the top 3 is the Brady Bunch. You don't know how often I wanted to use that reference there with them up inside the top 5. You got Kenny in 2nd, Max in 3rd. What I'm noticing here, and I don't know if it's just necessarily that all 3 of these cars are relatively even in terms of what they've got underneath them right now, but you've got about 0.4 of a second from Burst back to Brady, Kenny Brady that is, then another 0.4 of a second from Kenny Brady back to Max Brady. Why do we have this kind of a gap between these drivers? Is the 97 backing off a little bit more, waiting to make a charge, or is it just the fact that after Burst got that little bit of a gap, Brady can't close it up?
Well, you've also got to remember that the 02 machine as well was up here, and he was in the way. And you got to remember that as well, that TJ Bursk has had fresh air, clean air to the nose of that machine nearly this entire run. So it's a lot easier. His tires will certainly be looking a fair bit better than they should he have been mired back in behind Brady. So for him, grabbing that early lead on this run was such an important aspect. Then he got up, then he got attacked, and really the guys that were behind him, Ryan Narocki in particular, really set down about going after him. He kept his cool. He had to fight him off, remember? And that's why you're starting to see Kenny Brady actually start to come back towards him. Brady was just being patient. He said, Narocki is going to burn up his stuff. He's overdriving the car right now. I have to let that happen.
We saw both Henderson and Araki battling earlier and not a lot of space between them. That time, a little bit of paint was exchanged between the two off of turn 4, but they continue to keep it pointed the right direction, but hard battling just outside of the top 5 between those two, and that might have been a case there of Ryan Araki realizing he's used up quite a bit of his stuff, and he's just trying to pinch those machines down, not allow them to get a run. There's the 53 of Justin Malello. Now, Malello is actually a lap down, was on pit lane 8 laps ago. He's
this will be fresh tires.
Yeah, this is a fresh tires call, but with 13 laps to go, unless he's able to get the benefit of a caution coming out here, I don't see how this strategy is going to help him in any way.
Well, even then, I mean, he's got to make sure that he gets back past the 194 of TJ Burst. He's here, he's running in an awkward position for these guys, and he's definitely going to be in the way. I'm wondering whether or not, in the back of my mind, that fuel question mark is still over a few of these cars, and Malello just, he got to a point whereby it was like the fuel number that he needed to save was far higher than he could possibly save, and he just had to come. Went with the alternative strategy. Somebody's got to do it. You're never going to win a race by just sitting there and doing exactly what all of your competition are going to be doing, because ultimately, generally, there's enough cars in the field, one of them's going to be better than you. You know, so Malello's gone in the complete opposite direction. If these guys were going to run out of fuel, though, one of them would have already come to pit lane, though. So I think they're good on fuel. I think this is just a wild curveball that's been thrown out there by Malello.
Might be the attempt at the ultimate Hail Mary pass. Of course, Malello below the cut line, 36 points, and maybe just trying something different. Getting into the box of tricks, maybe able to catch himself a late race yellow here. He would be the lucky dog should the caution come out at this point in time, or as you alluded to, the fresh tires. Could end up getting himself around the 194, get a caution, and be at the tail end of the lead lap with all the rest of the drivers.
See, the issue here is that if he gets the lucky dog, that's not good enough. He can't pit until after everybody else, and he'll be the last car in that line. Like, it's not good enough for the 53 machine. He has to pass these guys before the caution comes out. So he's only got a couple of laps for that to happen, and then give himself the opportunity to get back after them. So, it's difficult. And I admit that I'm glad he tried it. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, it could be as well. He's attempting to work with somebody here and net them a bonus in places as well. It could have been his strategy.
Saw Kenny Brady move down to the inside, let the fresher tires of Malello on by. You have to wonder if Malello can get up here to the 194. Would he upset the air enough that then Kenny Brady can take advantage, make it a battle for this win with less than 10 to go?
I definitely agree that there's something on there. The other thing is, it provides another car worth of draft support down the straight. So Malello's there, and he's right there. He's going to upset the air in this next lap and a half. So Malello could be the deciding factor of this race. Wouldn't that be a big thing?
Couple of Toyotas looking to settle this thing out. Then you've got the Ford Mustang back there of Max Brady trying to lead Zwack, Schwartz, Henderson, and Araki up here. Try and make it 7 drivers to battle for this win. Malello not able to get to the back bumper just yet of the 194 TJ Burst. Bear in mind that Malello, after making that pit stop, he's been out there for 13 laps on these tires, so they're starting to wear away just a little bit. You got to wonder at what point do they kind of even out to the drivers around him.
He's searching for grip too as Malello. This has actually compromised Brady in a big, big way. Brady doesn't want this other car in the way because he's had to roll out of the throttle and let him come on by. And ultimately, when you do that, you want him to get by the leader and do that same sort of thing. But he hasn't been able to do that. And now Malello is causing more hassle for Brady than he can really deal with at this point in time. I also want to keep an eye back a little bit further behind as well. Matthew Zwack has started to gain a fair bit of time over the last sort of 5-10 laps. He's starting to push there. I'm wondering whether or not Zwack can come through and snag himself a podium. He's going to move to the outside here.
Tries to get to the right rear quarter panel of Max Brady, who might have moved up a little to throw a block. Zwack had to react, and that cost him a little bit of time there, a little bit of an opportunity to drive it deeper into turn 1. Andrew Schwartz was right in the back bumper. You can see he lost some ground to the 18. I think he had to check up as well when Zwack had to give a little bit of extra room to the 05 off the apron on the front straightaway. Now Zwack back on the attack here into turn 3.
Zwack on the attack. Love it, Seth. Love it. He's got an opportunity here. I mean, there's, again, 6 laps to go this time by the stripe. He's got to go, and he's got to go now, because he's also going to make sure that he's got the ability to counterpunch. He's got to be able to defend this one. You don't want to be diving for this at the line, and the 05 is making it so difficult to overtake. That is the widest car I've seen so far tonight.
That's a battle for the 3rd position going on behind the top 2 and the lap machine of Justin Malello, who actually Kenny Brady got back around. So now the gap a little more than half a second between the 2 Supras of Bursk and Brady. TJ Bursk looking for his first win of the season. Kenny Brady
just gotten
looking for his
underneath.
second. Gonna drive it in deep. Ooh, not a lot of room given there. That was close, and it's still close between those 2 here through 3 and 4.
Yeah, if he can get to 1 and 2 and he's still down there on the inside, I think he'll have this one. But he's got to get to 1 and 2 there. And I actually thought the 05 was going to be able to just get that really, really strong exit. Have a look at the 67. Schwartz wants a piece of this.
Yeah, you saw Schwartz kind of offering the drafting help to the 18 midway down the front straightaway, then jump back to the top, which had them kind of side by side still. Now Zwack going to clear off of turn 2, move himself up to P3, but it might be too little too late. 4.5 laps to go and over 1.5 seconds to make up to the race leader.
This is no longer about trying to win this race for these 2 drivers. This is about fighting for the 3rd place. Schwartz wants these guys to fight. He wants these guys to spend multiple laps running side by side. He wants them to have extra heat that they don't need in their tires coming to the last lap.
Matthew Zwack also wanting to take the pressure off himself in the next 2 races, have himself a bit of a cushion over that cut line in the playoff standings. Only was plus 28 coming into tonight's event as, man, things really stacked up behind him. Schwartz trying to get to the outside of Max Brady for 4th place. Not enough lane there off of turn 2.
He's going to duck back down the inside. I wonder if he's at the quarter.
Yes, he is. He is to the inside of the 05.
He's going to drive it in.
Deep. Drifts it up through the center of the corner. Enough space to be able to do so, and he'll complete the pass before they even got to turn 4 exit.
And now, I'm actually wondering if he might be able to respond and get that spot away from Matthew Zwack, because Zwack hasn't been able to gap the 05 as much as he would have liked. He's going to be there, and Schwartz is going to have a chance to actually go for this one.
We've got a
No way!
Late race yellow. It's going to be Seth Knoll in the 077. He's looped it around on the runoff area on the back straightaway.
No. Oh, what do you do? What do you do? You've got to come to pit road. I don't think it's even a question.
It's the longest run we've had. 40 laps these drivers have been out there on that set of tires. If you stay out, you're a dead duck. Doesn't matter how many cars stay out with you.
It's going to be another one of those ones when a Rocky strategy of when it comes to that choose cone, you pick the lane that's got the least number of cars in it because track position is going to be so important on this last restart.
Take a look at what happened here. Is that was Robert Dorman that got the wall, and then Seth Noel, it looks like he checked up in reaction to the 46. Tristan Hagenstein then tags him in the left rear quarter panel. Looked like Hagenstein was a little bit out of shape there as well off of turn 2, which might have led to the contact. We'll take another look at it. You know, I was looking through the field, looking at the close cluster of cars that we had, just on the possibility that there might be some late race contact. And, ooh, actually, I want to take this back to going into turn 1. There might have been a little bit of payback there, as both the 27 and the 077 were running very close to each other through the first couple of corners, just prior to that contact off of 2.
Oh, drama, late race drama, championship implications. Oh man, that's big. And you know, the other side of the coin here is that Malolo was never able to get his way around those leaders. He opted to come down, grab those fresh set of tires. Now he loses out. So the strategy goes in the wrong direction twice for Malolo.
We're going to try and see if we can go on board inside the cockpit of the 27, just to see if being pinched down there on that inside line, car might have gotten loose on him. So let's see if we can give him the benefit of the doubt. Watch the steering wheel here off of 2. Is he attempting to save the race car off this corner? He was pretty well clear of the corner exit for that thing to snap to the right like that. But then again, we're not in the car. We don't know what's going on. But just the fact that 07 pinching him down.
The 22 got off pit lane first. I wonder if Brady's beaten the 194 at pit lane. He hasn't. So it's going to be the 22. I think it's just grabbed 2 tires. I think this is a huge decision. I think it's the right one too.
It's Jack Painter, who is not eligible to make it into the playoffs. Even if he were to win here tonight, he is too far back in the point standings for a win to lock him into the postseason.
Championship implications, Seth. Championship implications.
What's happening here with the 095? Because I don't know if he's going to pit this next time by, but I'm almost wondering. Remember, he was involved in that spin with Balancino. They would have had to have taken on a set of tires. Is he out of tires at this point in time?
Potentially. Alternatively,
down or not?
It's too late. It's you got to even if you've got a set of tires behind the wall, I think you got to stay with it now. You got to run the course.
Ooh, boy, this is going to make things interesting. And let's bear in mind as well, a number of times at the speedways in the last couple of weeks, we have gone into overtime on several occasions. At the short tracks especially, we ended up having to use all 3 of our overtime green-white checkers. And with how crazy the restarts have been here tonight, I would not be surprised if we see this race go into triple overtime as well.
Especially with cars up there that are on 2 tires, cars that are on no tires, cars that have not come to pit road. I think they're going to be tight on fuel potentially at the front of this one as well. So, I mean, choose cone, it's about to get busy, boys. It is about to get busy.
So let's set up who is where based off of what they did on pit road. Martinez did not pit. He is going to be the race leader. Jack Painter in second went with a 2-tire strategy. TJ Brady. They took 4. They're going to be 3rd and 4th. Dalton Cowden and Isaac Johnson in 5th and 6th. They went with the 2-tire strategy. 4 tires for Matthew Zwack in 7th. 4 tires for Andrew Schwartz in 8th. Alan Balancino and Casey Nemitz completing the top 10. They are on 2-tire strategies. So a huge mixed bag up here inside of our top 10.
This is going to be difficult because remember the front row here. Both of the cars on the front row don't have 4 tires, and I was pretty sure that it was going to be whichever lane one went for, the other went for the opposite lane. So it was pretty much guaranteed that that was going to be the set. You've got 2 cars with 4 tires immediately behind them. Dalton Cowden is one of the guys who's only got two spots. He's right up there in the mix as well.
So far, only 6 cautions here tonight. How many more will we see before the checkered flag officially waves? It's our first attempt at overtime, green-white checkered. 22 did not get going. The 095 did, but he's going to get eaten up by the fresh tires before we even get to turn 1. 3 wide mid-pack there with Rocky and Jonathan Oates.
Yeah, it's deep there. I think there's 4 or 5 wide back in the mid-pack, and this is going to be difficult. They're 4 wide, Seth.
That's Alan Valentino, AJ Henderson. That's Oates on the bottom, Nemitz on the top. Lead change off here, turn 2. TJ Burst to the point.
Well.
No caution. No caution. That was the 62, I believe, of Tyler Clayball. Now the caution is out.
There was a car in the fence off the exit of 2. Big shot to the outside wall. There was also a car spinning in the background low in the middle of 1 and 2 as well.
Suma, who's had a relatively quiet day in that 125, started this race from 35th, had worked his way up inside of the top 20 late, involved here in our most recent yellow flag. Let's go back and see what happened. The first car I saw up into the wall there off of turn 2 looked like the 62 of Tyler Clayball. We'll see how Suma got involved. Also the 70 of Zach Hudson getting a piece of this. Actually, this looks like this was a second incident behind the initial car of Clayball getting into the wall.
There was 2 separate incidents, well and truly 2 separate incidents. There was a car that had a hard hit into the outside wall just behind the 4 wide scenario, and then there was a car spinning right at the tail end of the pack that was right down low off of 1 and 2 as well. I wasn't able to catch who either of them were, but there was 2 separate incidents. There was always going to be a caution there.
Let's take a look here at what happened to Clayball. The 4 wide was up ahead of him. Oh, that car just steps out from underneath him. No contact from anybody else. Everyone scatters on the back straightaway to be able to avoid. And that contact we saw behind between Suma and Hudson, I don't think that had anything to do with the 62. I think they were already in trouble before the 62 hit the outside wall. But that's a big hit there, especially to the right front for that driver out of Speed Inc.
Yeah, drivers starting to drop like flies as well. I think from the 43 that we started with, I think we're down to, 34 cars at this point in time, and I think we're potentially going to lose a couple more at this stage as well.
But you saw right there, just before Tyler Clayball got out of shape, big slide for Christopher Wetz just in front of him. So a lot of drivers, I don't know if it was just the cold tires there on this surface or them just getting back to the throttle, trying to get every bit they could out of that race car on corner exit, but a lot of drivers were slideways off the second corner.
You got to remember, we just had a run of 40-plus laps. The guys have been on really, really old rubber that's basically at the end of its lifespan, right? They're now back on fresh rubber. Not just fresh rubber, it's also cold rubber. 2 really big things for an important restart there. You've got 2 guys at the front that aren't on fresh rubber as well. You've got a few guys scattered right throughout the pack that have taken 2 tires. There's a whole bunch of guys on different strategies. Everyone's fighting themselves, the car, the track, the conditions. Everyone wants a piece of the action. Everyone wants the best that they can possibly get from this final restart, and unfortunately some guys at the back, they just making mistakes. Everyone gets a credit. Come to a green light check as you wanna really race it out. You want to really give yourself the best opportunity. So no wonder a few guys are pushing themselves a little bit far.
You talked about there the way they lined up for that last restart. Everybody, whatever position they were running, pretty much took that spot in this restart lineup. I'm going to pose a question to you in terms of Kenny Brady. You've got behind you the next 3 cars are drivers that went with either not coming to pit road or went with a 2-tire strategy. When we get to this choose cone, do you maybe elect to take the exact same lane that TJ Bursk takes, so that way when he accelerates, you're able to accelerate, you don't get caught out with him being the control car?
Both strategies are valid. I personally would be going for the other lane. The reason I want to go on the other lane is because I want that blocking lane of 3 cars immediately behind me to hold everyone up. Everyone behind me is going to have to fight their way through that traffic, and I want to be able to set myself up on an alternative lane. Now, if that happens to be the outside, yeah, you're giving up a little bit on turn 1, but that means you're going to have a lot more momentum heading down the back straight and into turn 2. And you can see Kenny Brady making that decision. He wants to go in the opposite direction, and I just think he wants that clear track. I don't necessarily think it's anything to do with the jump. I think he just wants fresh air on the nose of that car.
Yeah, as soon as I asked that question, I then considered that fact as well, that if you were running the same tire tracks as the 194, you're the one that's dealing with the aero tightness. He is not. Both of you then have the clean air going into turn 1. So yeah, valid point right there, and I think that might have actually been a huge deciding factor into him choosing the outside line for this restart alongside of TJ Burst. Alex Martinez on those old tires, 45-lap old tires, going to line up in the 3rd position, so we're not out of the woods yet of a possible staggered start here. Jack Painter, Matthew Zwack, that's the top 5. Dalton Cowden, Andrew Schwartz, Isaac Johnson, AJ Henderson, Casey Nemitz, that's the top 10 as we get ready to go back green. A total of 32 drivers still on the lead lap here, as it's going to be our 2nd attempt at an overtime green, white, checkered field in the hands of Burst. Up through the gears he goes. He's going to clear the top 2 behind him, but now gets a little slow there at the start-finish line. What happened there with the 194, I'm not sure, but here comes Kenny Brady. Here comes Martinez driving it deep into 1.
Yeah, Martinez got a really, really good start for very old tires. That's a phenomenal drive about him. But look at Painter in that 22. He's only got 2 tires. Have a look at Zwack. Zwack wants a piece of the action. He wants to race this out.
3 wide, 4 wide. You can see back there around the 10th, 11th, 12th position. They settle it back out to 3 wide, if that's considered settling it out. Martinez
going on the
way up the track. Oh, we got a near spinner back there. Dalton Cowden. He's going to hang on to it, but stack up that whole outside line. Can they make it back to the white flag? I think they are. Oh, no. Caution. Did they make it, though?
No,
that was close.
They did not. They did not. Painter is down.
Close.
Painter has spun. Painter's copped a big incident there. I think he may have been the first one that checked up that whole lane, which is unfortunate. I mean, he's the first guy, you know, on 2 tires, so ultimately he's trying to do everything he possibly can. But who got the lead? I think it was still the 194 that's got control of his pack. You know, the big factor here as well is now that Zwack has cleared everyone, so now it's going to be a 3-car fight for the race win at minimum.
Zach Hudson, Brett Pancari, Tristan Hagenstein, I think, all got pieces of this one. And this all started with the fact that the 117 of Dalton Cowden, I don't think he had any contact. I think he just was getting loose off of turn 4, drifted up the track, blocked that entire outside line, which were 3 and 4 wide. And you alluded to Jack Painter. I think he was the first car that encountered the slower machine, and they just couldn't figure out a way through as they all stacked up. And it must have been inches, because I was watching, I think it was maybe 2-3 car lengths that the 194 of Burst did not get back to the start-finish line to take that white flag prior to that caution coming out.
I'm just trying to get it now where the accident is, because I'll see if I can find when these lights flick over and how close they actually are to the end here.
Oh, wow, there's a shot there. That was the lap machine of Seth Knoll. Another driver had the whole front end ripped off, was the points leader, former winner Jonathan Oates, so add him to the list of drivers involved. And Poulin and Pancari are 2 Grand National Series winners at the Super Speedways this season. They're the 2 that took the adventure down to the infield grass.
You know, on my screen, they cross the line before the caution flies. That's interesting. That could just be, I don't know if it's, you know, the caution's not necessary. Oh, there's the caution. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I've got the first 3 cars crossing the start-finish line before that caution flies. There you go.
Well, looks like they did
That's
add the
5
laps
cars
on here for...
Yeah. We're getting a green white check. It's been announced, like within the simulation. It pops up and says, "Hey, we've got another green white check. This is the last one." First 5 cars were actually across the line when that one came out. That's an interesting one.
Now bear in mind here as well, with FTF rules, we end up having the frozen field with the first 2 attempts if a caution comes out. On the 3rd and final attempt, we race 2 laps back to the checkered flag. Whatever happens, happens. Everything afterwards, you know, we get looked at by league admins, etc. But this is going to be a 2-lap shootout with no cautions here for this final attempt. And another driver that I noticed was involved in that incident, Ryan Naraki. I mean, we've been highlighting him and a number of other drivers that are either just above or just below that cut line here in the playoffs. And it's been a little bit easier to be able to calculate who's where when they were under those long green flag runs. Now with all the beaten and banging and damaged cars we've got here in the latter stages, we could end up seeing quite a bit of shakeage in the points heading into Bathurst.
Yeah. And a lot of cars that are beaten banging up at this end of the... Remember what I said? Bathurst is going to be one of those wildcard races. Let's put it in the same sort of class as the Super Speedway races. Well, all of a sudden, Michigan's had that effect kind of applied to it as well, and we're at the playoff. We're just about to head into the playoffs. This is not what you want. As a driver, you want to be going in nice and comfortable. You want to be sitting there, you really, really cushy. Everyone, the front couple of cars are basically just going to pick the same lanes again. They all know where they want to be already. So interesting. Deeper on back, it seems to be 50-50. Pretty much everyone's just splitting exactly where they were in the queue. If that meant that you were on the low side, you went to the low side.
Well, TJ Bursk and Kenny Brady, those two looked like they were going to be the ones to possibly sell this thing out if we had remained green to the end. They're going to be the front row one more time here for this upcoming restart. You talked about Matthew Zwack, though, cutting his way up there. He's going to be right behind in that third position.
Zwack has got a lot of pace.
Very good the last couple of weeks. He's riding a lot of momentum. He's up there in the fourth position. And Andrew Schwartz would love to find that car in victory lane here after what's been a bit of an up and down last few weeks for him. He's going to line up for the completion of the top 5. Here we go. 2 more laps. We're racing back to the checkers. Who's going to get it? Advantage here.
Great jump.
The start finish line. Yeah, great jump there for Zwack. Great jump to the top side for Henderson in that 189.
That says to me that this is Burst. Burst has got this. These guys are going to sort this out, sort it out quickly. Have a look at Schwartz all the way down there as well. The 05 machine of Max Brady. All of a sudden, he's got speed.
That's Brady into the wall. Nemitz is going to get him. Everyone scatters. We still stay green. Remember, we're racing back to the checkers, so there's still about nearly, 3 miles for these drivers to traverse.
And remember that that's all of a sudden Kenny Brady's night over. That was a guy who has run near the front of the pack nearly the entire night long. White flag in the air, Seth, and Zwack has found his way to the 4. He's in P2.
He's in second. Max Brady now up to third. Andrew Schwartz in fourth. Those are the only drivers right now that are all in the same distance, striking distance of race leader Bursk if he has a problem here in the final 2 miles. Down the back straightaway, about 0.4 of a second, 3.5 car lengths back to Matthew Zwack.
Look at the 05. He wanted to block that bottom line. He wanted to go into this corner on the bottom. The 67 of Schwartz. He wants to finish this race out with a podium. This gives him a lot of confidence going forward, and the 05 says, no, I'm going to cut that off. He cuts low.
Gonna be a battle for third behind race winner TJ Bursk.
I think Brady gets it.
Coast to coast here tonight at Michigan International Speedway in the FTF WOJ 200. Only his second start of his FTF Grand National Series career, only his third start under the FTF banner overall as he ran both the Grand National and Cup races last week at the Indianapolis Road Course.
Oh man, what a finish from Matthew Zwack as well. I guess you can say that finish was just Zwack. I mean, it's Whack with an extra Z, right? A Whack finish with Z? Was he Whack?
Yep, Zwack.
Yeah, Matt Zwack. What a finish. It was a Zwack finish. Just like that pit lane entry.
Official top 10 crossing the line there, coming to that checkered flag. Burst the win. Zwack in second, Max Brady third, holding off Andrew Schwartz. Nathan Rabideau, Biggs points day in fifth. Gary Waterworth, a driver who came into this race below the cut line, sixth place here tonight. He's going to be up inside the playoffs heading into Bathurst for the time being. Chris Wetz, Isaac Johnson, Dalton Cowden, and Zachary Thornton. That is your top 10, but again, as you pointed out, a lot of drivers that looked like they were en route for really good finishes. AJ Henderson, Kenny Brady, they restart up inside the top 5. Henderson scored 27th. Brady scored in 29th.
Oh man, that was difficult. What a difficult night for Kenny Brady. Ran such a phenomenal race as well. That last caution, that was disappointing for him. He ran such a great race. I was so looking forward to getting to talk to him in victory lane down there again. You know, not necessarily in victory lane itself, but perhaps P2. It was just a great race all the way around. Unfortunate for him, but that's, you know, you've got to have a shot. The 189 machine, he has to have a crack there. And I think Brady will be sitting there going, you know, oh, you got into me. Why'd you do that? But at the end of the day, he's going to turn around and also say, hey, if I was in his position, I'd have a go there for sure. You've got to. You can't say that you're a race car driver and you come out here and you don't have a crack, and it didn't come off. And sometimes that's just racing.
Here's a look at our top 10. As mentioned, crossing the start finish line, Zwack, Andrew Schwartz, Nathan Rabideau. I would hazard a guess for all three of those drivers. They are in really good shape here with 2 races remaining of at least pointing their way into the playoffs. Already talked about the situation for Gary Waterworth in the 6th position. As we look on down through the remainder of the results, I mean, guys like Lucas Palesso, 12th place, very good run for him. A guy that currently sits inside of the playoff grid with 17 to the good coming into this one. But on the flip side, you got guys like Tristan Hagenstein. His evening started out not the way that he wanted. He brings it home in the 18th position. He was only 35 to the good, so where does this situate him? And even further on down, you look at some of these guys that were either just inside or just outside, like Ryan Araki getting caught up in that late race incident. Where does this situate him? There's a lot of moving pieces for sure heading into, as you mentioned, that unknown race next week at Bathurst, that timed race at that tricky road course.
Naroki, another one of those guys that had a phenomenal race. He ran really, really well for extended periods of time. He challenged for the lead. He wasn't able to take it away from TJ Bursk. Brady is there as well, the 189 machine as well. He got a huge shot to that outside wall, and, AJ Henderson still managed to crawl it home in 27th. What we saw tonight was just a whole bunch of guys going head to head, and when you're racing that close with this kind of speed and this wide a course, we saw multiple opportunities tonight. I don't think we saw people go 5 wide, but we definitely saw, I think, about 5-6 times where guys were 4 wide, and it worked. At the end of the day, you can only show respect to your competition. You say, hey, look, mistakes were made. Mistakes were definitely made, but that's racing at the end of the day. We come out here, we had to go. It was a good race. I had fun in the booth, Seth. I don't know about you, but that was probably one of the more exciting races I've seen it for a good time.
No, absolutely. And, obviously, we've seen the type of racing these guys put on when there's not a lot of space to be had. I mean, that doubleheader, that short track doubleheader we had at Nashville and then a couple weeks later at North Wilkesboro, what they were able to do there, the green flag runs they were able to have, it just made me even more excited to come into this race, and they delivered again here tonight. Some of those guys that are kind of question marks as well that are going to be where will they be positioned as far as that cut line? We already mentioned with Cosmin Shinoshu not in the field here tonight. Some of those other drivers that had some issues. Nate Stewart getting involved in an issue very early on in this race, 39th. And of course, Sean Butler finishing 42nd here tonight. Now, Butler came in triple digits above the cut line. Not certain that's going to be the case now, but he'll still have a bit of a cushion. Nate Stewart on the flip side, though, 67 points to the good, finishing outside of the top 30. Where is this going to position him? I mean, this is the time where we start to see those drivers that are right there just outside of the playoff grid have a shot of either pointing or winning their way in. This is where they do those unorthodox strategies. Try and throw that Hail Mary pass to get into the playoffs. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And who knows? You talk about it on the same level as a Daytona or a Talladega in terms of wildcards. Somebody next week could very well have that Hail Mary strategy to get themselves into the playoffs at Bathurst.
Just in terms of a Hail Mary strategy, probably not really going to happen. I mean, it's different to a super speedway in that, fuel strategies, tire strategies, they don't necessarily come into it in the same sort of a manner. Yeah, you can run an undercut, but you're not really going to see massive undercuts. You're going to see guys just trying to run consistent laps. It's about making sure that you keep the car clean. Ultimately, the thing that happens at Bathurst is that it's so easy. There are a lot of places around that track where it's so easy for a car to get all out of shape. If the leaders come around and find one of those opportunities and just fire into a back marker, that's racing. Ultimately, you could see a guy that runs 10th all the way through the race until the last 5 minutes, and all of a sudden he comes through and wins the race because just something happens in that last half an hour. And it's particularly in road course endurance races, we always say, buy your ticket to that last half an hour, and then it's mad season. Anything can happen. The guys can just go absolutely mental. Something off the wall happens, and all of a sudden you find yourself racing for a win. You've got to make sure that you're there at the end to give yourself the best opportunity. And look, I mean, the field of drivers that we've got out here, you have a look back last week at the Indy road course, and you say, hey, look, that was a really, really good race. Difficult to get those cars around there, but everyone gave each other space. People made mistakes, but it was okay. Bathurst isn't that kind of course. It is a narrow track with concrete walls lurking just on the edges of your vision. So you've got to be careful at all times. The car bounces up and down throughout the lap. There's a huge gradient. I think the gradient's 16. No, actually, it's a lot more than that. The gradient from turn 2 up to turn 4, so that's Griffin's Bend all the way up to the cutting, is massive. And these cars don't like that. So that's going to be tricky. How the car deals with all the dips and dives. It goes down, it comes back up again, then it goes down again across the top of the mountain. How they manage braking, coming over a crest and then down through a chicane effectively at one of the steepest gradients that you see in the world of motor racing. It is going to be a difficult race next week. That is certainly for sure.
Well, you had a blast night. I had a blast night. Let's find out about the drivers. As mentioned, kind of snuck his way up there very quietly. Did Max Brady to finish in third. Unfortunately, we don't have him on standby for a post-race interview. But let's talk with a guy that may have possibly solidified himself a spot in the playoffs here tonight with a runner-up finish. Let's talk with Matthew Zwack. Hey, Matthew, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yep.
Man, great performance for you here tonight. Up inside the top 10, top 5 pretty much the entirety of this evening. And we saw how much of a stress there was in terms of track position. Not only to make sure you had that clean air to the nose, but saw a lot of mayhem take place around the midway portion of this pack, the 3 wide and 4 wide. How was it for you? Because obviously it looked like didn't matter where you were in the field, there was always a battle to be had.
Yeah, I mean, you put the nail on the head there with just always fighting for spots. I think the hardest thing was just trying to keep the track position and not burn your tires up, because once you either lost that right front or the right rear, that car was going away quick. So yeah, it was trying to maintain track position and keep those tires was probably the most important thing.
I mean, probably fan vote for driver of the night. We saw a lot of support for you coming out from chat throughout the evening. Everyone was keen to see a strong finish for you. I mean, are you gonna? We set it up here in the booth. That was a bit of a whack with a Z finish. Are you gonna coin that one and run forward with it as well?
I don't know. I've had my last name used in a couple ways, so we'll see about it. I wouldn't mind using that. It doesn't sound like a terrible idea.
He's whacking it. Matt's whacking it.
I mean, let's talk about the playoffs here, Matt. I mean, obviously coming into this one, 28 points to the good. We know that there's a couple of unknown tracks. We obviously know that we've got the timed race next week at Bathurst. We've got Darlington, which a lot of drivers really like, but then there's other drivers. I mean, it's got that ominous name, the track too tough to tame. They kind of consider that a bit of a race of get in, survive, get out, and that's our final race of the regular season before the playoff grid's put together. So how much stress, how much importance did you put on a good finish here tonight with those two tracks upcoming?
For me, this race was always huge. I've been looking at it for a while. This is probably one of my best tracks on the service, and it's my home track, so I know it pretty well. And yeah, I know Bathurst is going to be a rough one, and Darlington's always a tricky one to get around. So trying to get a good points gap here, and knowing this was a good track, I was going into it hoping for a good result, and I mean we got there.
Well, great performance for you, as we mentioned. Pretty clean car as well. We saw a lot of drivers with some dinged up fenders, but your car looked pretty pristine there, that NOS Toyota Supra. So congrats on a tremendous performance. So we hope you can carry this momentum here for the remainder of the regular season en route to trying to capture one of those playoff spots to battle for the championship. But for now, we're going to turn the mic over to you and let you do some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Got it. Who to thank this race? Like to thank Lucas Plussel, Matt Spalding, some of the guys over at Changbang Motorsports. They were big help. Rudy Valentin was cheering. He was doing some support. Anyone who was help rooting for me. All those guys, they were huge help this race. Like to thank them.
At the Zwack runner-up here tonight at the Michigan International Speedway. Once again, congratulations, Matt, and looking forward to seeing what you bring to the table here in these final two races of the regular season.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot.
Let's go down to victory lane. First time he captures a Grand National Series win under the FTF banner. Let's talk with the guy who goes coast to coast, the pole sitter, TJ Bursk. Hey, TJ, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, obviously, it's no easy task to go coast to coast. Grab the pole, keep them all in your rearview mirror, and go to victory lane at a track like Michigan, especially with this aero package. We saw the pack racing all the way through the field, but it always seemed like no matter whether you got passed for the race lead or whether you were back in traffic on a tire strategy, that car always found its way back up to the front. Only your second start here with these guys here tonight. I mean, how were you able to keep that car so consistent in terms of its speed?
Well, with the Xfinity car, you definitely got to save your tires. So, trying to find the balance between not going too fast and burning your tires off, but not going too slow and losing a bunch of track position was definitely the key. And yeah, this is my second start with FTF. Definitely love it after my first two. These guys are really good at racing. You get a lot of good close racing, clean racing. Stuff can happen, but that's just racing. And I definitely like running with these guys. So yeah.
Difficult race out there tonight. Kenny Brady certainly took it right to you for an extended period of time of the race, but it was just so important to get that clean out of the nose. I mean, that last long green flag run that we had, 40 laps or something, you pushed your way to the fore early, and how important was that to getting that car and keeping it out front of the pack?
Oh, it was definitely very important. That was a really fun run there. I didn't really know what was gonna happen because we were running identical lap times there for the whole run pretty much until the last few where I started to just pull away a little bit, and then unfortunate to see the caution flag wave. I thought I got the white flag, but the caution still came out, so that was a little bit frustrating. But fought through some adversity there and got the green white checkered win. So.
We talked just moments ago with the second place finisher Matthew Zwack, and we were talking about tires. I want to just elaborate on that a little bit more here, talking with you in terms of what you guys felt in the race car, especially when we had that long, nearly 40 lap long green flag run. We had those late race cautions. I noticed when drivers came down, took on those fresh tires, a lot of them, I know that they were trying to get a lot out of their race car and corner exit, but a lot of drivers seem to be dealing with the loose sensation once again. I'm assuming that was with the cold tires. Did you have any feeling of that? How difficult was it to kind of get back into realizing what the car was going to do with the fresher tires underneath after running such a long green flag run?
Well, yeah, in the long run, it was definitely really tight. You had to save that right front. And then I knew going into the green white checker with the cold tires, it was going to be pretty loose. And, I remember from qual, having to be really patient with the throttle so the car wouldn't step out. So I decided to take a little bit less fuel so the car would tighten up a little bit. And I think that definitely helped. I feel like I almost took not enough because I really had to get out of throttle in the middle of the corner. So I don't know if that was what really helped me win there at the end, not taking fuel. But I would say it worked out pretty well.
Certainly did. Heck of a run for you here tonight. Pole to victory here at Michigan International. Congratulations on your first win here in the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. We're now going to turn the mic over to you. Let you do some victory lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shout outs.
Yeah, shout out to all the guys at Nexus. Those guys are great. They helped me out big time. Shout out to my dad if he's watching out there. Definitely my biggest fan out here. And, shout out to you guys. You guys put on a great broadcast, so appreciate it.
That's TJ Bursk. He is your winner here tonight. Gets to burn it down in the FTF WOJ 200 at the Michigan International Speedway. Congratulations, TJ. Best of luck here in the upcoming weeks. Maybe we'll see you double down and pick up your second career win here in the Grand National Series.
Y'all have a good night.
So that's going to bring our coverage to a close here tonight at Michigan. On the horizon is Bathurst. After that, we go to Darlington. And when that's done, we now will know the 11 drivers to battle for the playoffs. But we've talked about it all night. That wild card race of Bathurst coming up. A lot of drivers not necessarily knowing what to expect. That could certainly shake up the points. Darlington in and of itself has, I don't know how many names. Lady in Black, Track Too Tough to Tame. I'm sure there's certain other names that other drivers have given that track through the years. But when you consider here tonight as well at Michigan, when we looked at these three races, we kind of pegged Michigan as the track that if you're going to make up ground, this is the place to do it. And we saw that happen. This is definitely a track that has played its part into who very well could be in the playoffs by the end of these next 3 weeks and who is not.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of drivers out here tonight had terrible runs. A lot of drivers out here, I think, finished a lot higher than they were expecting to be finishing as well. So, look, I mean, really good run. Phenomenal racing. It was close right the way through. I thought we were done. I thought we'd gotten the white flag on that second to last restart. I mean, it's something I think the league admins will probably go back and have a look at, because whenever something like that happens, it's always a learning opportunity. Whether you did or didn't do the right thing is not necessarily the debate. It's normally, what's the call line? Where is the call line? Did we hit that call line? Did we not hit that call line? Why are we making the call line this particular location on the track? So it's important that everyone goes back and reviews that one, because it's always a great learning opportunity. You never ever come across a scenario within racing, full stop, that you cannot learn something from. You can always learn something from a moment that's like that. Drama-filled race, chaos-filled race, phenomenal win for Burst. I mean, and Matthews Whack, what a great run. He drove his way back to the form multiple times tonight. It's just a great all-round race, Seth. And next week, my home track. You guys are coming to my section of the world. Let's do it, baby.
Absolutely. Bathurst is going to be a lot of fun as we get ready for another timed race, the 2 hours of Bathurst next week, the penultimate race of the regular season. And you want to talk about a point shaker, that could be definitely one here that we're going to have to keep an eye on, with all of our playoff contenders either above or below the cut line heading into next week. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that one as well. I believe we're actually going to be also bringing Anthony McCrory, another guy that loves the road courses, into the booth. So going to be a lot of fun to have the trifecta up here in the commentator station as we get ready to take the twists and turns of that tricky road course. Going to be a lot of fun. But Scott, it's been a good one here tonight as well in the Irish Hills of Michigan. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
No, pleasure. And I mean, it gives a lot of context to what we're going to be seeing next week as well. And that's really, really important when you go to a road course like Bathurst as well. Context plays such a huge factor.
Absolutely. Well, next week we're going to be bringing you coverage, as we've talked about pretty much all night long, from Bathurst. The motorsports drop 2 hours from Mount Panorama. That'll be next Saturday night, with the green flag scheduled to fly at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you guys will join us. But congratulations once again to TJ Bursk on the victory here tonight in the FTF WOJ 200 at Michigan International Speedway. For Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. We'll see you guys next week as you've been watching yet another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.